switch up. Enough for I don't get it mixed up. I come in peace. I'm bringing commentary and new releases. I put the mouths in. Get play on, don't be scared. Destroy you when I get down. If you ain't gonna keep your head fixed up, babies put the switch, gearing up for up. I'm bringing new release. The mouths in. To get prepared now. We play on expert level. Don't be scared now. You on a fourth line. If you ain't tuned into that down.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us on a special edition of The Fix. Before we continue, to my guests, please turn your volume down on your side because it's feeding back. Thank you guys for being here. I'm trying to see if Danny will join us. He may not be able to today. Give me 1 second. Because it looks like my main screen is not showing what I needed to show. Give me 1 second to correct that.
Professional podcasting, everyone.
Yes. I need you all to understand that if you want to make it to the big leagues, this is how you do it. Let me put on.
It is a requirement to screw up every episode until you get to 100.
Indeed. Just put on, I don't know, Cocoon or something. There we go. All right. Yes. So we're getting back into order. There we go. Cocoon. So guys, we will be having a roundtable discussion about Metaphor Refantazio today. We'll be talking about a few other things as far as gaming news, but I won't keep that too long before we move into what we want to talk about, really. And then we'll get out of here. We won't waste time. We won't sit here just to talk about whatever for nothing. And these gentlemen here with me today are extremely knowledgeable about the subjects at hand. So I would just ask that you guys, hit the like button and share your thoughts as we go along, asking questions or whatever along the way. And that's really it. So without further ado, let me go to my guest, starting with Assassin as he begins with A. Ask Sin Man, as Red Wolf would so lovingly call you. My brother Assassin, thank you for joining the podcast, brother. I believe this is your first time here, right?
Yeah, it actually is the first time. I gotta say, Umbra, I'm very honored that you actually invited me here to talk about Metaphor and whatever else we're going to talk about. So happy to be here. Happy to see everyone in chat.
Yeah, when I thought about it, we talked about it in the background before I brought you on. It was actually, it's like one of those light bulb moments for me. It was like, why didn't I ask Assassin? And I could not figure out why. So oftentimes I kind of go by the seat of my pants, like, oh, hey, let me ask this person would they like to come on. And in my head, I guess I've made up the canon that you wouldn't be free on Thursdays. I don't know why I did, but that's what happened. But yeah, man, more than happy to have you. I've praised your takes before. I know you're very knowledgeable on gaming in general and passionate about it as well. So very happy to have you here with us today, brother.
Thanks, Umbra. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And last but not least, of course, is my brother Lucius Augustus. Very prestigious name, if you are not aware of him. Also very knowledgeable about games. Very helpful on the tech side of things as well. Actually helped me with my ascension, if you will, for those who may not be too happy with the PC side. I'm sorry. You're going to have to accept it. But yeah, Lucius, my esteemed brother, Thank you for joining the fix today and joining for this roundtable discussion. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me. I hope you gentlemen are ready for discussions about literary references and Renaissance art because that's what I'm going to talk about.
Yes. Open your minds and your IQ levels, raise them because if you're not prepared for that, you will be left behind. We will not hold your hands. Understand this. No, we're joking. I'm joking. But we're definitely going to talk about a few different things when it comes to Refantazio as it relates to theme and everything else like that. So I'll move into a few things as far as recent news, gaming news, or whatever, and then we'll move on. If you guys have anything in the chat that you want to add, again, please type it in there, and we may touch on that. Let me move to. I'll keep it simple. So, guys, were you aware of outside of Assassin's Creed Shadows being delayed until next year, that they're also adding a co-op mode that's being developed at the moment? So
I did not hear
Yeah.
anything. Oh, go ahead.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I didn't hear really anything about it until Tom Henderson reported on it through Insider Gaming. Assassin's Creed with a co-op mode. What is it with legacy franchises trying new things? First, we got an Assassin's Creed co-op mode coming to Shadows, and then I know we're gonna get into it later, but Halo Infinite getting a third-person mode. What is going on in this? What is going on with the franchises that we love? They're trying new things, and we'll see how they work out. But I'm genuinely shocked that Assassin's Creed, a single-player franchise, is getting a co-op mode. Very curious how that will work out.
Yeah. What about you on that, Lucius? Now, we did have a past Assassin's Creed. I believe it was, what was that one? Was it Unity? I think that began it. Unity may have been the one that started it, where they had a co-op option.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was a co-op option. I don't know if it was for the main game, but it definitely was for like either side parts of it. And part of the biggest issue when it comes to co-op in a large open scale game like that is always going to be, okay, well, what's the tethering going to look like? Are you going to be able to um, uh, each do something independently around the world, or are you both pretty much stuck together within a period, like a specific place? I could see, like outside of the potential fear of uh, old franchises having to reinvent themselves, I think that it might end up being a good idea. You have two different play styles. You have the Yasuke play style, which is just busting through the door and like causing chaos. And then while that's happening, you could also have the assassin Yahweh play style, who kind of moves around while the chaos is happening and nobody's paying attention to her. And she gets to the main location where you need to killed like the main person, and since most of the guards are gone, it's much easier to just slip in and kill that one person that you need to. So it could work. It's all going to be about execution. I don't know if this is like a move of desperation from Ubisoft because financially they're not in the best place, but I don't know, like maybe they're just throwing everything at the wall to try to survive. But if they execute it well, I could see it being fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And it could be a case of desperation. I'll add that they're probably going to have more than just those two types of play styles too. Seeing how it's multiplayer, they'll probably have different types of samurai or ninja, as it would be for now. So I wonder how that'll all play out, but I'm open to it. This will apparently happen post-launch, so it's not going to be day and date, unfortunately, but I'm all for this if they can make it work. For me, there is never enough when it comes to, I guess, samurai or ninja-based games. I'll take them all. Let's move on. Okay, so apparently Starfield Shattered Space DLC is according to Paul Tassie's tagline here, is not a hit with critics or fans. And if you look at the review scores, the meta, if I can find that really quick, yeah, the overall is a 57 meta and also a 57 open critic. It did not score too well. I'm hearing a lot of mixed things about it. I've started up on it myself.
It only received like maybe 5 or 6. Not that many publications have reviewed it.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the ones that have very much did not like it. But outside of critics, which I think we can get into, I think that when it comes to consumers, a lot of people that I've seen actually be able to play it, they say that it's either okay but not good enough, or they really like it. But the biggest problem on the consumer side is that it's busted. A lot of people cannot even run the game right now. For some reason, there's this weird issue where the game is installing different packages in different places where it shouldn't, and then it's not able to read it properly, and then that's making it so that way you can't read it. And because the Xbox store is the combobulated mess that it is, it doesn't allow you to simply move the file system around like if you install the folder in the wrong place, like fine, I'll just copy and paste that folder into the right place and then you should work. No, somehow that doesn't work because the Xbox app is just complete trash. Meanwhile, if you played this on Steam, you're at least able to get into the game, right? Like, so if you like, that's its own problem, at the fact that Microsoft continues to fail at making sure that its endpoints are reliable, but we don't have time for that. If you play it on Steam, it will at least run, so that's good. But you then also run into another problem where the performance just isn't good. Like it introduced a lot of different bugs. It seems like the expansion came in hot and they didn't have enough time to properly polish certain things. So, outside of we can get into like more specific things if we want to, but I just wanted to kind of address that thing, like the fact that from a technological standpoint, there are a lot of problems, partially based off of Microsoft and Xbox's fault for their inability to create a proper launcher that actually works, and Bethesda either not pushing back enough or giving themselves enough time to be able to properly deliver the game in a way that works properly on people's devices. So,
now, let me say, I did have that issue when I started it up myself, as you saw. You hit me up about it and gave me some tips about how to fix it on my end. My issue, it showed the Constellation and Old Mars ESM issue, and I'm like, oh boy, so what's this? And then I started hearing from everyone else that they were having that same type of issue. So I looked into it and I tried this trick that I saw on a video on YouTube about moving the packages, as you pointed out, from that were hidden into the proper place. But that wasn't my issue apparently. So I go back into the Xbox app on a PC, click on the 3 dots and say, because I remember you pointing out, it's just,
I told you, like, if it's just like the Xbox console, then it allows you to be able to manage packages inside of the software.
Right.
So you just need to click on the 3 dots and be like, oh, are the tiny things that I need to have installed, are these things installed?
That's exactly what you told me, and that's exactly what it was. So I did that. I'm like, okay, there it is. And then I download those, which took about a second because they're so small package wise, and then I load the game back up and it went through properly. I'm like, problem solved. So I don't know what everyone else had, but that's not my issue, luckily. Fortunately, yeah. But
a lot of people are having a lot of issues, and I wanted to, before even talking about the expansion. I wanted to address those issues because I didn't want it to. I wanted to take those issues head on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before I start talking about the expansion itself.
Yep, makes sense. But yeah, so looking at the reviews posted by, and a shout out to our brother Shinobi602, he posted, I think it looks about 14 different people so far, at least publications from Xbox era through to the Guardian, have given it a review. I don't know how many total have given it at this point, but I'm sure it's not super numerous, like supremely numerous either, knowing how they tend to do Xbox reviews. But overall, it is a 57 on both Metacritic and OpenCritic. Now, I'll ask this to you both. Do you feel like have you guys had a chance to play any of it yet?
Yes, I've played a good amount of it. I haven't finished it yet. I've mostly I started the main mission, ran around, did a bunch of side missions, came back, did some main mission stuff again, ran around, did a bunch of side mission stuff. So, kind of the normal way that I play Bethesda games.
Okay. So, and your thoughts for you? What do you like? And well, before I go to that, Assassin, what's your thoughts on the 57 open in Metacritic? Have you had a chance to play it yourself yet? The DLC?
I have not, but I've been watching and reading people's opinions on it, seeing their gameplay. Red Wolf, shout out to him. He actually made a video about his thoughts on Shattered Space. He's a big Bethesda hardcore fanboy. He loves it. He really does. He loves everything about it. He loves the music. He loves the world design. He loves everything about it. Then I go to see the other side of the spectrum, and I see people like Mr. Matty Plays and Legacy Killer. They have issues with it.
Yeah.
I try to whenever it comes to seeing games, whether I should jump in or not, I always try to get both sides of the spectrum. I have never seen a DLC from Bethesda be so divisive. It's like Lucius said earlier. People either really like it, or people just think it's the worst thing Bethesda has ever released.
Yes, it's
And
pretty,
the 57
pretty
definitely
hilarious.
reflects that
Yeah.
on Metacritic.
So personally, for me, that's why I wanted to like get all the negative out of the way, because I'm very much enjoying this. I'm very much enjoying this. So like a couple weeks ago, I sent a message to like our gaming circle group, and I said, if the base Starfield game is the 1968 film 2001: A Space Odyssey mixed with a little bit of 2014's Interstellar, then Shattered Space is going to end up being the 2018 film Annihilation and the 1997 film Event Horizon. Now, if you're a movie buff and you understood everything that I just said, and if that excites you, then the expansion is very exciting. It like the very beginning is very much an Event Horizon feeling, a space station that's haunted, everyone's dead, mutilated in the worst ways possible. And you're just like, what's going on? You're having like zero G battles, and you know, obviously certain kinetic weapons are going to be a disadvantage in that situation because they push you back as the recoil. So you have to like have different sort of weapons that can reconcile for that. The enemies are very hard. Like I am level 103 when I started it. I'm 108 now.
Nice.
And when me being 103, I'm going against like a bunch of level 97 dudes, but like all of them have multiple layers of armor and all of them have good weapons. So I'm like surrounded by mini bosses. And it's fun. The
Very
combat,
nice.
like
Yeah.
at that stage of it, like that's what I want for like a good experience, because I'm so high level, I'm so powerful that I need just a bunch of mini bosses ganging up on me trying to kill me. for me to have fun, and it's a good time. Like I find that the enemy placement is significantly better than the base game.
Mhm.
I had a situation where I turned a corner and a bunch of enemies were above me. Some of them had like rocket launchers or something, like grenade launchers, and right below, like right next to me, was just a bunch of explosive barrels.
Oh man, they ready to send you to the pearly gates.
Yeah, they were trying to send me to the
Jesus.
shadow realm, bro.
Right.
They were trying to like
Who
so
you said
so
you said you mess with House Varun, you going to see Jesus soon. That's what they
yeah,
told you.
exactly. So,
Arrows blow up
so
immediately, and the next cutscene is, "Hey, you, finally awake."
exactly. I'm in Skyrim again. No, but like, I feel like, just like some people have said, man, I really do love the visuals of this planet. I'm playing this on my Series X, and I'm playing it on the 40 FPS mode. So it takes advantage. It gives you all the beautiful visuals that the 30 FPS mode did, but it just bumps up the frame rate a little bit. And from frame time standpoint, 40 FPS is actually in the middle between 30 FPS and 60 FPS
Mhm.
frame time wise. So it feels really good. So that's how I've been playing it. The 60 FPS mode I don't like, so I would say to avoid that. Yeah, it looks like shit and it kind of doesn't run well. But like the 40 FPS mode is very solid. So if you're playing on Xbox, do that. If you have a 120 FPS monitor or television that can split that between 40 FPS, then that is the way that I would highly suggest playing it.
Mhm.
Yeah, like I'm liking the vibes. I'm
Yeah.
liking the new weapons. There are two new companions that I guess are somewhat easily to, like, you can easily miss them.
Mhm.
A lot of people complained in the first game, or in the main game, that you couldn't be evil enough. I want to let you know you can choose to be the biggest piece of shit on the planet if
Yeah.
you want. Like every single time that you are given an option, there is an option where it's just like, oh, this is probably really bad.
Yeah.
So for people who want to be the bad guy, that is something that you can do. As someone who I chose Serpent's Embrace uh, as one of my original traits.
Mhm.
So there are a lot of conversation options that are popping up for me, because technically, like, I was born outside of
Out
like
of the
typical House Varun,
Yeah.
but I come from House Varun blood.
Come from that
So
lineage.
yeah, I come from that lineage.
So do you all
So
walk up to each other like talking like snakes or something?
well, they still mostly treat me like an outsider, but there
Yeah.
are certain times during the conversation that I can, like, really kind of in some way manipulate their own faith and like make them do what I want based off of, like, oh, well, of course, brother, the serpent would also want us to be able to do this. So, so like, I don't know. I'm really enjoying it. I haven't even finished it yet, but
Yeah.
as somebody who likes like space horror movies, as somebody who likes like these kind of sci-fi whatever, I'm
Mhm.
very much enjoying Shattered Space. If you enjoyed at least some parts of the original Starfield, but you wanted something that was a little tighter,
Mm.
rather than having to kind of go everywhere and find a bunch of missions, this gives you that. It's still Starfield. I don't know. A lot of people might have wanted this to be like a Cyberpunk 2.0 moment,
Mhm.
but that is not what this is.
So, okay, so there's a few things I'll add to that. I didn't get far enough to give much of a full take. I saw some of what you were saying, but didn't really get, like, I had got into it. You know what's crazy? Just to give context, when I did finally get into Starfield, when I was playing it before and racked up a ton of my hours, it was through Xbox and it was also through the ROG Ally. And when I did do that, I had one of those sync save issues where it erased my progress at a point, so I had to go back to an older save. So I'm now just working myself back up to a level well past where I was at now, fortunately. But I was playing the game all day yesterday and until early this morning, which is why I dozed off before the show. And so I didn't get a full chance to dive all the way into the DLC just yet, but I will after this show for sure. I had heard a bunch of mixed things, and to shout out our brother Palpatine in the chat, he was saying this. I want to add this and just get your take on it and your thoughts on it. Now, he said for him, he said he understood. He said, sorry, I understood your reference, but he doesn't see how you get that except for 2001. And then he also added for him, he said he couldn't quite put his finger on what was the issue that was missing for him. Then he said he played Phantom Liberty, to your point, and he said he realized what was missing: fun. What do you feel on that? Because it's subjective, right? Everybody, it's going to what's fun is going to be fun. Somebody might not be to the other person, but what's your thoughts on that?
First of all, I want to talk about the movie references. 2001: A Space Odyssey. Like, I would say that the original base Starfield game is 2001: A Space Odyssey. Like, sorry, Jim, I cannot do that. Like, that reference and the robot and the guy talking to each other, that movie. And then 2014's Interstellar. If you don't see Interstellar in the game, you haven't played enough of the game. And the reference of Shattered Space is Event Horizon, which was like a 90s
Classic
horror, kind of space horror film where they get into like a large space station kind of place that was doing these experiments that essentially opened up a gate to hell. And people inside of that place just got murdered in the weirdest ways. The whole point of Shattered Space is that they were doing experiments on gravitational energy and the grav drive technology, and going as far as they possibly can, that caused a catastrophic explosion on the planet that took out most of the city. And because the space shuttle that was like, I guess they were using some sort of quantum connection or whatever. When that happened on the planet, it also happened inside of the space station, and then it caused it to warp to a further place. That is literally almost the same exact storyline as Event Horizon, right?
I can see some of that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then Annihilation. I don't know if you guys remember the movie Annihilation. There's like this chick who was some doctor or whatever, and her husband, during a previous excavation into like this weird reality bending space, apparently died or something, or maybe came back and he's not really him. So she goes inside of this like warp space with a bunch of other female doctors, and there's a lot of like mind bending stuff that happens.
I remember. It's like it made clones of the people and
Yeah,
stuff.
and
Okay.
there's like it's like and there's like a weird mix of like how genetics are like mixing inside of that area, because like the entire area is alive essentially.
Yeah.
That if you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to get deeper into Shattered Space. Right?
Right.
So that's why I make those references. And a reference to Cyberpunk 2077. I had played over 200 hours of Cyberpunk 2077 before the 2.0 update, right? And a lot of people note that Cyberpunk 2077 was a more fun game after 2.0, but I think that it was a worse RPG because it removed a lot of choice and consequence when it came to how you were choosing your perks. And because of that, it kind of put everyone around the same strength range. And it essentially, like, if you chose your perks wrong, and you chose perks that really didn't benefit your playstyle or anything, you could end up like being high level but still feel kind of weak, right? But if you were somebody who really knew what you were doing when it comes to RPGs, you were able to specifically choose things, and you became a monster. You became like the boogeyman. You became Baba Yaga, right? Right? Like there was a difference. And then 2.0 came, and all that feeling went away. They dramatically decreased how a lot of the systems worked. The systems didn't work with each other like they used to. You used to be able to like make it so that way your armor system was like benefiting off of your ability to craft things. You were able to, like, essentially, if you were like a huge RPG fan, the base version of the game was significantly better than the 2.0 version. But if you weren't if you weren't the person who really gets into the minutia of RPGs and you just want to have fun inside of a video game, 2.0 is better. So sure, I will take your point and say, sure, the Cyberpunk 2.0 expansion was more fun, but I enjoyed it less as a game when it came to the systems and how they worked with each other, because I'm a fan of RPGs first and foremost. If I want fun, I can play games like Warhammer 40,000, which are just like adrenaline drip fed directly into multiple orifices at once.
Okay, that was very elaborately explained, and thank you for that. No, seriously, like, yeah, that was. I think that was well explained, and it wasn't like you were aggressive toward anybody. You were just giving the full understanding, and I definitely think everybody understands your viewpoint of it. And yeah, and Palpatine, to his credit, he said that's cool. He respects your point of view. Let me ask this, and then we'll move on. Gray had mentioned to him he didn't feel it was horror themed, but he was looking forward to that aspect. I guess I can't really ask Gray, you would probably have to elaborate on why you didn't feel it was horror themed.
I mean, I think it really does depend on like your sensibilities, right? You remember you've played the base Starfield, so you remember when you had to go into the Varun embassy and the kind of creepy energy that it had there?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So like if you recognize that as like creepy and horror, the Shattered Space has that in spades.
Got you.
Right? But if you went through that section and you didn't really feel anything, like if you're one of these people who like really needs something to scare that living shit out of you for you to feel the horror vibe, then I can understand how this is nothing for you.
Okay. Makes sense. I have much more to do into it before I can give a full thought, but yeah, definitely. You know, it's interesting to me too, just kind of thinking about back to Event Horizon, which if you all have not seen, you all have wasted a lot of time. That is a great movie, superior cast. I mean, from Sam Neill from the Jurassic Park fame, as you all would know, to Lawrence Fishburne, the legend, to I think even Oscar Isaacs or something. Who was that other guy? I think it was Oscar Isaac, if I'm not mistaken. Or so like it's a crazy good cast. Jason Isaacs, that's his name. Oh, my bad. The man who played in Harry Potter is the father of what's that guy? What's that kid's name with the white hair? I cannot think of. I just forget everybody's name. So excuse me. Yeah,
kid with the white hair.
The kid,
what?
Or blonde hair? It was like a bleach blonde looking hair.
Draco.
Thank you. Yeah, so
oh, he played Lucius.
He did.
Malfoy.
He did. Funny enough, you see that, Lucius? See how I tried to tie that together but couldn't?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Fun fact. Event Horizon is actually one of the 3 main inspirations for Dead Space, alongside The Thing and Alien.
There you go. Look at that.
And when Lucius was talking about Shattered Space as DLC, I was like, 0G environments, mutilated bodies. Like, did Bethesda put Dead Space in and just slap on a Starfield logo there? I'm like, what? What is happening? That's exactly what it sounded like when you started describing it. I was like, wait a minute. Are we playing Isaac Clarke?
So AJH said he watched Event Horizon as a kid, and he said it scared the living fuck out of him. It is kind of creepy. It is pretty creepy.
Yeah, I watched it as a kid too.
Yeah, that's same.
I have never seen it.
Oh, you got to check it out, brother. You'll like it. I think you'll like it. So Gray says, he says, so you'll be okay, Umbra. You won't need to run away all the time. My, as I call them, my black senses kick in. My, you know how Spider-Man has his spider senses, his spidey sense. Well, my black sense kicks in when it's creepy danger going on, and I get out of there. I'm not like one of these people in the movies who sit there like, let me go investigate. Oh, what's that noise? Nope. I'm already halfway to another county at that point, you know. So I'm sorry. I'm not the one that's going to go investigate the creepy sound you heard. Not me. I can't speak for
Maybe if
everyone.
it was Friday the 13th, but if it was a Nightmare on Elm Street, there's no. You could go fucking Hawaii and you're dead anyway.
Oh yeah, that's the terrible part about Freddy. And the way I sleep, the way my sleep is scheduled right about now, he got me. I'm gone. Anyway, let's move on, fellas. I'm out of there. I'll ask you your take on this first, Assassin. So, other reviews have come in for Silent Hill 2 remake, and surprised the hell out of me, and I'm sure everybody else who saw this. That game apparently is scoring really, really well with critics. I'm not sure how many total critics have weighed in just yet, but apparently right now it's sitting at an 86 on Open and Metacritic. Crazy. I'm sure it's probably shifted at this point. But probably.
I think it was an 89 when I saw it. I think
Wow.
when I first saw the reviews, it may have gone down to 86, like you said. Let's be honest. It's Bloober Team. Yes, they are a talented developer, but masters of the craft, they are not. So when I saw the reviews and when I saw the industry's reaction to those reviews, holy fuck! Either they managed to get their shit together, or Konami went in there and said, "You cannot afford to fuck this up." Either way,
Yeah.
I mean,
either
but
way,
that's
it looks
way
amazing.
Too much credit to Konami. That's saying that Konami cares about video games, and I don't know if that's good.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. I guess you're right about that. I completely forgot Konami doesn't give a shit. Anyway, so 86 on Metacritic. Apparently, the critics are loving the enhancements to the combat. That was one of the concerns that Holly, shout out to that blue number, she had issues with it. Red and I both also had issues with it. It felt too clunky, but apparently it's talked as like Resident Evil 2 remake mixed with Alan Wake 2. 16 to 20 hours, if I remember people talking about the original. I think it was like an 8 to 10 hour experience, so they must have added a lot of content or expanded on the content that was already there.
Hey, Assassin, let me cut you off for one quick second. You're
Yeah.
I don't know if you can hear it from your end, but on my end it sounds staticky, like your mic or your headset.
Oh, okay, yeah, it's the fan above me. I'm sorry, everyone. It's just here in Texas, it's pretty expensive for AC, but I can turn it off real quick.
It's just have this kind of
Lucius wanna.
Yeah, it got this kind of static
Take over.
sound. I don't know if it sounds more technical than if anything else. I don't know. It sounds like maybe the headset is loose or something. That's what it sounds like to me. I'm not sure. But yeah.
Give me a second now. Let me take.
There you go. Now you sounded a little bit clearer for whatever reason. But no,
What the fuck?
I'm aware of with Texas because Danny has had that issue too. Where it's super hot out there, and that's why I don't like super hot towns like that. Anyway, I'm more of a fall, winter, spring guy. But yeah. But yeah, Lucius, what's your thoughts, man, on this, right? Because Bloober Team, it surprised me because Bloober Team has, I know our brother Shlomo had called them Boo Boo Team, and I agreed with that because I don't think they were that good. So this came out of left field for me. What's your thoughts on it?
I'm gonna be serious first, and then I'm gonna be petty.
Uh-oh.
All right. So first, I'm gonna be serious. Congratulations to them. Team obviously worked very hard to be able to make this happen. So definitely always like it when a team is able to kind of execute on their vision, because that stuff's not easy. Even when you have like a good idea, even when you have a good IP, it's not necessarily something where it's gonna happen. So congrats to them. On the petty side, bro, ain't it funny how when Xbox gives motherfuckers money, they can't make shit, but when somebody else gives them money, suddenly they can make some shit? Ain't that crazy, bro?
It is
Ain't that
crazy. It is, yes. I saw the meme somebody
That
posted too.
PlayStation level of quality, man.
Yeah. I saw somebody post a meme about that too.
I remember. Okay, Lucius, you said that Konami doesn't care. You're right, but Sony has to care because it's their fucking platform. It's their timed exclusive, of course. They have to fucking care, like they did with Final Fantasy.
It depends
Jesus
on how
H.
much
Christ.
it depends on how much say Sony really has in these things. It's not to say that they wouldn't have a lot of say, because it's going to be on their thing. But we've seen Sony's kind of shoddy contracting kind of bite them in the butt pretty recently with what was that game that was like fake that everybody kept believing was a real game, but then I was like, oh, is it
Oh,
like
it was
a game, but like a
Abandoned.
yeah, Abandoned. There it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Blue Box. Yeah.
yeah, Sony can easily get got, and we've also seen a situation where they believed that the Knights of the Old Republic game was going to be better than it was, but unfortunately it didn't turn out well.
Right.
So it's not to say that Sony can't be in a situation where they're not fully in control. So we need to recognize that, but at the same time, yeah, they probably had some say, you would imagine.
Yeah. So I hear you on that. My thing for Blooper Team is that by the way, I see that our brother MG Dark, he called him Blooper, but it's Bloober, right? With a B. Right? Bloober.
Yeah, it's Bloober.
Okay, that's what I thought. I'm like, am I going crazy? So my problem with them is, I don't know if you all saw this, but somebody did a expose, if you will, on YouTube, breaking down them pretty much just stealing so much of Layers of Fear from someone else's creation, and it all added up if you look at it. And I was like, wow, so they just plagiarized like entire swaths of someone else's work and put it into their game uncredited. And it's like you could see the references. He gives you clear references to find it. And I was like, oh wow, so they just stole all of that and kept moving. So, and I didn't think too much of what they've done was too impressive, honestly. I know some people had mixed reactions with the medium. It did nothing for me, so I didn't really give it much time. It was like whatever. So I didn't have much faith in them. So seeing them put in something that's getting reviewed this well, I'm wondering if nostalgia is winning off more over than anything else.
Maybe.
Yeah.
You might be right on that, but
Possible.
I mean, time will tell, like, right? Because people will be able to play it soon, and if it doesn't feel like an 86, then people are going to call that out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if that has anything to do with it, Umbra, then the people that have played Silent Hill 2 before, they're the ones that are going to be like, oh, well, this game it plays well, it plays like I remember, it's exactly the same feeling I had when I first played it. I would honestly take a look at the people like me that have never played it and see what their reaction is. If I'm being honest, I was surprised by this, but I'm still going in with a little bit of caution because everyone's opinions are different, everyone's tastes are different. So I'm going in with just a tiny bit of, okay, they could fuck up for me, but
A little bit of skepticism. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Big Man
it did
Mo,
wonders for Starfield.
It did, yeah. Big Man Mo says, so 87 is good now. Yeah, listen, the one thing that I have hated in the discourse with our Hoove brothers is the moving of the goalposts from only first party matters to nope, well, look at PlayStation's year with third party games, essentially, to 90, anything under a 90 meta is mid or whatever, to now, oh, look at this high scoring game. Like, at least they're getting back to normal, I suppose. Big Memo, we can give them that much at least, because 87 or 86, anything in the 80s period is great, literally. So, but that I hate the discourse, and I stand on this, and I will die on this hill, that I blame our Hoove brothers for that discourse around 80s not being good enough. Same thing where I put the blame on them when it comes to $70 games. I put that on them for just accepting it and not giving any pushback back whatsoever to Sony when it comes to things they have helped push. And I know some people were like, well, Sony wasn't the first, but they were the major ones. They were right after 2K, and they were the major ones. If Sony didn't go, nobody else would have gone after that. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Let me read this super chat. So from my buddy Mortivore, aka Russian Asset, Casual, he says here, Umbra, to help you on your way to getting WoW. That will never happen. Thank you for your Australian dollar dues, but no. But yes, I'm sorry. My maniacal laugh came out of nowhere. To my brother Red Wolf, he gives a $5 Red Wolfery due. He says, "Come to support my youngest son, Assassin." He says, "I can't stay shooting a wedding." Uh-oh. What did they do to you? And can't wait to hear y'all's thoughts on Metaphor. Yes, thank you, brother. Thank you both for the donations. And yeah, Bushido, why aren't you donating something? I'm not understanding how some of our brothers here are not donating. What's going on? Give us the money. No, I'm joking. No, thank you guys for that.
You gotta remember, when Bushido tries to donate, the nurse comes in and sedates him almost immediately.
See, what had happened was, as I was in the process of hitting the button for Google, it my nurse came in and sedated me. It actually sounds like an excuse Bushido would make, actually. But moving on, and we're almost to the Metaphor discussion, guys. I just want to get a few more things out. Shout out to, by the way, the Silent Hill 2 review compiled list there. Shout out to Hazardor. And this one is also from Hazardor. The Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster has made its way to the 12th top paid game on the Xbox Store for the US and number 1 in Japan for the Xbox Store. What's you guys' thoughts on that? And does this make you happy or excited for possibilities of the future with more games and JRPGs that have traditionally skipped the platform? I'll go with you first on that, Lucius.
Yeah, I'm incredibly excited because I like to play RPGs, and I also like to play JRPGs. And a lot of them were skipping the platform either because PlayStation specifically paid them for it, or the developers at the time were so centered around their own region that they weren't thinking globally. So they're just like, well, Xbox is just not inside of our region at all, so why would we put any effort? I disagree with that, but whatever. And then you also had situations in where Xbox didn't make it easy for these devs to be able to bring things to the platform. So I'm glad that they're making it easier for things to show up to the platform. I'm glad that they're working harder to show that a global incentive is good for these Japanese companies, big or small. As you saw with Pow World, right? A very small company that had only its regionality, but a lot of people were able to see Pow World because it was at an Xbox show and it was coming to Game Pass. So because that was such a big thing, it showed people, because that was the first time, if I remember correctly, the first time that Power World showed up was during a Game Pass show, right?
Yeah, I believe
so.
so.
Actually, no, it was the Game Awards, and then it came to Game Pass later.
All right, so
really?
Disregard that argument. If it was the Game Awards, then disregard that argument, because that's obviously going to be significantly more influential. But at the same time, I think the point still stands that I'm glad that Xbox is putting in efforts towards those things, and I guess I should also thank PlayStation for forcing Square to be in such a precarious situation that other Japanese devs are looking at that and be like, I don't know if that's where I want to be.
Well, okay, so looking into it, it said it was first revealed in June 5th, 2021. Excuse me, 2021. I'm not sure what show that was. And I'm like, I could have sworn it was before that. So it was.
That sounds like Summer Game Fest.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It was either Summer Game Fest or
it
was either Summer Game Fest or at the Xbox event.
It was a Keighley show.
Of the two. Yeah, okay, that makes more sense. I'm like, I don't remember seeing it at the VGA, but I see why you thought that, because it was Keighley's show in general, so that makes sense. What's your thoughts on that though, Assassin? With when it comes to this, at least selling seemingly decent, the Pixel Remaster, selling it decently
Pixel
enough.
Remaster, the Pixel Remaster being number 12 here in I think it was, you said Germany, right?
In the States,
Number
and then
one.
number one in Japan for the Xbox store.
Number 1 in Japan. Xbox for Koreans Twitter account, shout out to them. They actually showed that the Pixel remasters were number 6 in Korea as well.
Nice.
So a lot of interest for Final Fantasy over there for the Xbox users there. The more games on more platforms, the better. When it comes to third party, I still believe that first party should go both to PC and their main console. That's just how I am. But regarding third party games like the Pixel remasters, I play Final Fantasy on PlayStation because that franchise has a history with that platform. But that has never stopped me from saying, I want those games on Xbox because more people need to play these games. They're fantastic games. Final Fantasy 16 is one of my top 3 for last year. When that comes to Xbox, I will be screaming to the heavens to all of you. Play it, for God's sakes. It's a great game. It's totally different from the turn-based games from before, but it's great. Persona, Shin Megami Tensei, jumping over to Xbox. That was the big turning point for JRPGs to grow on Xbox. Atlas themselves have said the audience for Persona on Xbox has grown significantly since that announcement. I think 2 years ago, actually.
And Square
When
needs
Persona-
to take a lesson. Like, things don't just suddenly sell immediately. You got to give it a little bit of time for the base to, like, grow inside of that, inside of that ecosystem, and then you can really make money. Like, Persona 3 Reload sold 1 million copies in a week.
Very impressive.
Yeah, like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth sold 1 million copies as well.
And that happened because they decided long ago, hey, let's put Yakuza everywhere that we possibly can, so that way we can grow the fan base. They have huge sales on Xbox, PlayStation, and Steam all the time. They're bringing it to Switch. They understand, like, increasing your audience is the fastest way that you can grow in comparison to anything else, especially since it takes so long to create games nowadays.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't take RGG and Atlas.
It doesn't seem to take them too long.
Pumping out games.
Yeah, crazy.
Sega, like, bro, somehow Sega has 2 Insomniacs underneath their belt. They have Atlas and they have RGG, just pumping out games that sell pretty well and have relatively, and they're actually better than Insomniac because their budgets for those games are significantly lower.
Yep. I'll add to just to add to
quality.
Yeah, exactly. The quality hasn't dropped, to their credit. What I'll add to that really quick too is I think that kind of speaks to what the future may hold for the AAA space, because like the question is it sustainable? That's always the question now, it seems. And I think RGG and Atlas even have hit that kind of, quality where they can deliver what their fans want. Quirky nonsense, still great action, and that martial arts system that has evolved over the years from virtual, what's the name? Virtual Fighter to Shenmue to this, and they still deliver a quality game at the end of the day, even if it's quirky and out, all over the place. And I don't think it's costing them a mint to make those games. You know what I mean? So I wonder how that's going to play off into the Western side.
It's not a $300 million budget game,
right,
where they have to share the profits with Disney or something like that. Like, no, it is possible to have high quality games without breaking the bank. It's just about scoping. It's about good management. And, that's a problem with the industry, because they've worked people so hard for so long, and the crunch mentality that existed so fervently in the 90s and 2000s pushed out a lot of high quality managers, right? And so now you only have people who don't really know how to manage that well. Like they may know how to make great assets, they may know how to like do other things inside of video games, but like planning and managing and scoping, that's a very specific skill. And a lot of the people who had those skill sets have left because the industry has pushed them out.
Yeah, unfortunately. Assassin, your thoughts on that part as far as, and I'll add to this and just get your thoughts on this and we can move on to the next part so we can kind of, because there was one part of Ubisoft I didn't touch on, which was the whole Tencent thing. And Gray asked it, so I will ask that of you guys right after I ask this other one. But with this being the case with the JRPGs becoming more prominent and Microsoft wisely making partnerships with Sega and Atlas, because they brought over all the Yakuza games in RGG, to your point as well, Lucius, and they brought over now all the Personas, I believe, just about, if not one missing maybe. And so, man, you guys opened my eyes crazy when you started talking about how they milked Persona 5. I'm like, whoa, okay, all these different spinoffs.
Yeah, there's a lot of
You
spin-offs.
forgot to mention Persona 5 Phantom, quote unquote. I think it's a mobile game, but they're talking about bringing it to consoles.
Yeah, it's like a
Okay.
gotcha game that might come out soon. One of the crazy things that you have to think about, Sega bought Atlas in 2013 for like 140 million dollars.
Crazy.
A couple years later, they released Persona 5, one of their most popular games, and then a couple years later Persona 5 Royale. Both those versions of the games, just those two, which are like the main core games of Persona 5, those two sold 7 million copies. And then you have like 3 or 4 spin-offs, and it doesn't really take them that much money to make that.
True.
Just from the 2 games, that's like estimated like 280 million dollars
Crazy
that they made
ROI.
off of just those 2 games.
Yeah.
So it's like crazy ROI just based off of like you buying this company for 120 million, and then a couple years later they make you 220 million.
They got the Insomniac package, just like Sony.
Yeah,
did.
like it's crazy.
Well, what's your thoughts on that though, Assassin, with the whole thing and then bringing more games like that to Japan, from Japan to the Xbox, and what's your thoughts in general when it comes to, because you're a big Persona 3 fan, and I definitely want to get into it because you have been telling me to play it for a while, and I've been kind of playing this or that. But what's your thoughts on them bringing more of these games into it, and what other, I guess, franchises would you hope that they do that with?
To be honest, I mean, it's essential, right? You have to have Japanese games on your platform in order to succeed. You can bring in all the Call of Duties, you can bring all of the games from the West over to your console. But if you don't have a fan base for Japanese titles, some of which are some of the most anticipated in the industry right now, you're not going to succeed as a platform. And Microsoft has they suffered for an entire generation and a half because of it. They are just now finally starting to get that JRPG audience that they actually built up during the 360 gen with Lost Odyssey, with Blue Dragon. They've been trying to build that back up for so long, and now they're starting to see the fruits of their labor, but they have to continue doing it. You have to try and get more games from Japan on Xbox. I'm so glad Monster Hunter is it's a big one. It's a very big IP in Japan. So much so that entire companies have shut down to have their employees play the whole game.
I saw that.
That was actually a thing.
Yeah.
You want those type of people playing on your console. People that will literally call out of work, people that will literally shut down their company so they can send their employees to play that game.
That's
You want that
crazy.
game on your console.
Yep.
You'd want that. There are people that will do that for Final Fantasy, for Devil May Cry, for Persona. There are people that will literally do that just to play those games. It is essential. If you want to be a successful platform holder, you have to have Japanese games on your platform. There's no excuse.
Yeah, and it's not, and like I want to make it very clear. A lot of times people make it seem as if there's like, oh, this is just favoritism towards like Japan. No, like you got to realize Japan is the second biggest, like it is the second biggest region when it comes to game sales. Like when it comes to people buying video games and like engaging inside of that ecosystem, 100% Japan is like at the top. and only second to the United States. So if you have a gaming strategy that is going to encompass gamers and a large swath of people, you cannot leave out Asia.
Yeah, 100% agreed. Uh, I'll add to that we had this kind of renaissance when in the 360 era, where we were getting these games, and it seems like Microsoft just kind of like went to the wayside, like, fuck them. I don't know, but it seems like they're finally getting their act together. Well, not finally. They've been doing this for a while. It takes time, of course, and I know the platform isn't as sought after or beloved as a PlayStation or a Nintendo in Japan either, to be fair. So it's a lot of work that has to be done there. But just for us over here that do appreciate those games, I'm glad that they've made those steps. And Phil, he kept his word on that. So shout out to Phil.
Actually, Umbra, there is a growing number of Xbox users in the region, actually, after the price hike for the PlayStation 5.
Oh, I saw, by the way, to your point. Yeah, the Xbox Series X even moved up to,
Yeah,
I believe, number 1, right?
It did, or it moved up to the top 10, but here's what Microsoft should do. I don't know if they're going to do it, but they really should. If you want to advertise Game Pass and you want to advertise the Xbox, advertise the Series S, 3 months of Game Pass included, put Genshin on the box, put Monster Hunter Wilds on the box, maybe put Starfield or Halo on the box, and maybe one of the sports games. That people look at consoles when they go into a store, they look at the games that's on the box. If the games on the box are what interests you the most, that's the console that most people buy.
Mm-hmm.
Do that, and I guarantee you, the Series S will probably be, if not, probably the second most sold console in Japan if they do that for the holidays. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
If they do that, I would not be surprised to see that become one of the best-selling consoles for the holiday season.
You know what? Maybe
Just surprise me.
maybe grabbing something like a Genshin Impact, which is now coming to the or on the platform now, stuff like that. And they do have the Atelier series and stuff. Like they're starting with that, so they're starting to appeal to that crowd. I can see it, you know. So I mean, they're making some moves. I hope that they go further with it. We did hear about the Asia project. I forgot what they called it. Where they're trying to grab more of our Asian brothers and developers to, I think they said at the time, 200 different ones at the time, studios and such. So like they're doing work there. It's not like they're not doing it, but it's kind of like the whole cadence things when it comes to Xbox, where we see the potential there, but these games have just not come out yet. And it's like, when the games come in? That's what it kind of feels like. Let me read this. Doofy says, this looks like Death's Door Part 2. It does kind of look like Death's Door. Now that you mention it, Doofy, this right here is Cocoon, available on Game Pass, by the way. You all should play it. It's a great little puzzler. AJH says Microsoft needs to invest in Japanese studios. Yes, they do. It doesn't even have to be larger producers like Sega. I agree. Go with Miss Walker. 100% agreed. They were just talking to Sakaguchi there at the event, mind you, and he was talking about how I think he felt like he betrayed Nintendo and stuff like that with Final Fantasy at the time. Level 5, 100% agreed. Love Level 5, and you have the foundation of the 2 solid studios. Absolutely. I'll add to that just to throw it out there, and I don't want to go too far into it because I don't want to make it sound like we're just mad at Xbox, but I still hold true that I am so upset that they did what they did with Tango and Hi-Fi Rush and just that studio in general, because they had that foothold in Japan. I don't understand why they thought that would be the move to erase that. Oh, and Mr. Inferno said it in the chat there. See, I don't understand that. So anyway, let's move on because I don't want to dwell on that because we'll be here all day. We'll be here all day for that. Let me read. I guess I don't want to go too far on the Halo thing because I've had the discussion the other day. That would also take a while to really delve into. I'll just read this for Diablo 4, going back to reviews. Diablo 4's Vessel of Hatred is coming in really well, scoring all over the place, including PC Gamer, which I think has some type of bug up their ass against Xbox at times, but scored a 9 out of 90 from them. And it is at an 85 OpenCritic and an 87 Metacritic for PS5, of course. So roughly about an 85, 86 meta overall, it looks like. Really well done from the team at Blizzard. Shout out to them. We don't have to dwell on that. And let me go to what was the last one? Okay, well, since I just mentioned this, Rod Ferguson was asked on Twitter by a Numbness, terrible name. Oh no, I'm sorry, you got a terrible name, brother. Namnus. He asked, "Hey, any idea if Diablo 4 will be getting a PS5 Pro update?" Rod Ferguson happily explains and replies, "I've been getting this question quite a bit recently, and I'm happy to say that Diablo 4 and a Vessel of Hatred will indeed be PS5 Pro enhanced. Very proud of our hardworking team to make this happen. More details at a later date." What's your guys' thoughts on that? Now, it had to happen as far as, a pro option, I suppose, when it comes to that. But at the same time, at least in my Xbot heart, it feels almost kind of like a bit of a little jab, just a little bit. What's your guys' thoughts on that? I'm trying to be mature about this, but I can't. What's your feelings on this? It doesn't bother me like, oh, how dare they? Like, we had to know it was going to happen. But does that to you set a standard of what we can expect for all multi-plat offerings when it comes to that? What's your thoughts? And anybody can go at first if you just choose to jump in.
Oh, well, the 12 people that actually buy the PS5 Pro will absolutely love that.
Yeah.
Come on.
Shout out to our 12 Who brothers.
Come on. Yes, I'm glad that it's enhanced on PS5 Pro. It's better games are better for everyone, but at the same time, look, you can be happy that your product is going to another platform, but if you're under a specific platform holder, it just sends the wrong message that you don't like the people that you're under. It just doesn't. I don't know how to explain it without sounding like a fanboy, but you guys get what I mean. It's just
fully elaborate. This is a safe space, Assassin. You can say whatever you want, even if it comes off that way. I don't think anybody's gonna, snip your part out and post it on Twitter.
I mean, it would be like if Arrowhead put Helldivers 2 on Xbox and started, saying implying that it will run better on the other console, right?
Yeah.
It's Helldivers 2 is not coming to Xbox, at least not for a very long time, if Sony decides to do that. But yeah, it just I can see why it rubs you the wrong way, Umbra.
It feels
you just
wrong.
Have to take it on the chin for now.
Yeah.
You just have to take it on the chin for now, because to be fair, I mean, Diablo, Call of Duty, all the main IPs under Blizzard are still going to be multi-platform. I never expected it to be exclusive in any way, shape, or form. You do get Game Pass benefits from Blizzard and Activision games, so that's a plus. I wouldn't let it bother you too much, man. But yeah, I can see why it rub you off the wrong way.
There is that we got a bit of a trade-off where it's coming to Game Pass. I suppose you could use that as a.
It'll be in Game Pass forever.
Yeah, there is that. So yeah, it just kind of makes you feel. It goes. I think it plays into that mindset or that thought that. That Xbox mainstays are we're kind of getting that second citizen kind of treatment when it comes to second class citizen. Thank you. That's what it starts to feel like a little bit. What's your thought, Lucius, on that? What's your thinking?
I'm two ways about this. First, I do want to say I mostly agree with you guys. It does feel weird. But then there's also a part of me that's like, okay, are you going to ask your developers not to take advantage of the hardware, especially around the hype cycle for the hardware? Because you're going to potentially be able to make sales off of people who are like, well, I want to play the PS enhanced version on the what? Sure, whatever. Buy the game there. We make money off of it. Cool, right? So I can understand their perspective of like how they kind of don't care, and I could also understand the fanboy perspective because I am one, I guess. I'm mostly Xbox. I also have PC, but it does feel weird. But with all of that said, something very interesting happened recently, and I don't think most people paid attention to it. Somebody who was on the Horizon team said something to the effect of, I can't begin to describe to you how it feels to work on a PlayStation IP and bring it to Nintendo Switch. That person said that on Twitter. Now, there's a small chance that they've deleted it already.
Yeah.
Because
I could see them deleting it. Yeah. I could see them getting
but
bad
it was
pushback.
it was somebody from Gorilla who said that. And it was about the Lego Horizon game. I'm very excited that they're able to get that, but that's another developer showing pride in a different, like bringing their game to a different platform in a way that brings whatever. I find it interesting that most people either didn't know about this, maybe because the person deleted it, or because I guess people don't really care that much when other people say it, but they hyper focus when anybody underneath Xbox says it.
I did not know that anybody said anything of that nature about Lego Horizons, to be honest. But just a brief divergent from talking about Rod and what he said. Anybody excited for Dragon Age, The Veilguard, or Stalker 2? Don't worry about for lack of quality, because the Horizon curse is real. So those games will be games of generation.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
I'm
You'll be fine.
actually excited for Veilguard. Actually, I think I'm going to invest in that.
You do realize with Metaphor and Dragon Age within 2 weeks of each other, it's going to be a very tough month.
Oh yeah, it's going to be tough. I'm going to put my efforts into Metaphor first and foremost, and I'm still hoping to get that key, that review key. We'll get into that too, because we're going to mention that when we discuss it. We got some plans in place, myself and Lucius, for that if we can get that right. But
nice.
Black Viking in the chat says Metaphor clears. Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. We're gonna be the Metaphor stands, all of us, all four of us here. We'll push that message, because I think Metaphor, from what I played, is excellent. And I had never played any Atlas games before that. I want to clarify, but for me to have not played any games in the series or games that they make, and to come away with the feeling like this could possibly be a Game of the Year contender, I think that says a lot. And I think I'm a pretty good judge of great or good games personally. So,
Question.
Yes.
We were talking about this earlier. Persona 3 and Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth sold 1 million copies within its first week for both games. With this game being multi-platform, it's not on Game Pass, so you will have to put out $70, but it's high quality, at least what we played from the demo.
Mm-hmm.
How many copies do you think that this is going to sell?
For Metaphor?
And do you think Atlas will be happy with that?
As far as Metaphor, I look at what the success, and we spoke on it already, what they did with Persona 5. I don't think Atlas is going to go down. I think they're on an uptrend. So I'm going to guess 2 million maybe within whatever allotted time, if not more. Overall sales will probably be in the same range of 5 to 6 million, I would imagine, overall, because it's going to be on all platforms too. Yeah.
It's the first time that a new IP from Atlas is launching not just on PlayStation, but on PC and Xbox.
Yep.
And I guarantee you there is a Switch 2 version in development behind the scenes.
That makes a lot of sense. And this game, to that credit, and we'll get into the technical talk on that, I think it'll run just fine on the Switch, on the Switch 2. Just to say. But yeah, and like AJH said, they have the confidence. They put out a demo of it, which allowed people to get a bit of a taste and say, okay, no, I'm feeling this. And look, it worked for me. I hadn't played any of their games before that, and I wasn't really like I'm going to play me some Metaphor.
Cheeto.
And and here we go. This demo turned me all the way around to where I cannot wait to get my hands on this and play it fully. And I'm going to put a ton of time into it. By the way, they said it's going to be like a 100-hour game as far as like all content and everything. I likely will hit the 200-hour range. That's That's just kind of how I am, because I look at every nook and cranny. I find everything I can. I try to exploit everything I can when it comes to that, and just get everything I can out of it. And I'm just, I guess, more methodical and slow moving when it comes to that. But yeah, so I'll ask this last question. You all don't have to take too much time on it, but Gray did mention it in the chat, and it is relevant because we were talking about Ubisoft, and right after this, we'll be moving to the Metaphor Roundtable, guys. So Tencent and the Guillemot family are said to consider a buyout of Ubisoft, shared by our brother Wario64. Now, this is not just shared by him clearly, but this is his tweet I'm looking at. One of the possibilities being discussed would involve teaming up to take the company private, according to people. What's your guys' thoughts on Tencent ever growing into the homunculi monster they are in owning all of these different publishers and such? And I mean, I already had the thought that Ubisoft would eventually be bought out by somebody. I said this actually last year, maybe. I think me and Danny talked about this, and we spoke on that possibility of Ubisoft because they were having some issues then, and now they're having even crazier issues financially now. Lucius, I'll start with you. What's your thoughts on this when it comes to Ubisoft possibly being acquired fully, or at least majority stake going to Tencent?
There's a part of me that would be a bit concerned, mostly because I would question who would buy them. Would regulators allow certain people to buy them? Would France, as the country where they kind of come from, would they allow this to happen? France doesn't have too many super big studios like this. People may make fun of Ubisoft, but they are kind of like a crown jewel of France. So I don't necessarily think that that they would want that to just like disappear, but we'll see. I think that Ubisoft has put themselves in kind of a bad situation, and I hope them the best.
Yeah. What about you, Assassin? What's your take on that? What's your thoughts?
Honestly, I would be very. I'm the opposite of Lucius. I'm very, very concerned. Should Tencent acquire a majority stake or fully acquire Ubisoft? This is a company that has some of my most favorite franchises as a gamer in general. Assassin's Creed has been a huge part of my gaming life. With how they treat Riot, I would be very concerned how they will change, because if they're not going to keep things the same, they're going to want to change the atmosphere of everything under Ubisoft, the management, the creative visions that they may or may not have. Honestly, I think Ubisoft should stay as they are, get Assassin's Creed Shadow out the door, but after that, change your fucking ideology. The reason why Ubisoft is such a big punching bag is because they're chasing trends, and they're not even changing their own formula. Yes, you have games like Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, but Ubisoft has released so many quote-unquote mid to average games that those games drown out the gems that they do have, like Prince of Persia, like Immortals Phoenix Rising. You cannot stay the same forever. Every publisher is doing it. Some publishers are doing change the right way, others are absolutely not. But Ubisoft has to change something under their wing. They have to. Whether it's a change in leadership, whether it's a change in direction, which, to be honest, it doesn't seem that way to me, considering they're going back to Splinter Cell, for God's sakes. Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time, they didn't have to delay the Sands of Time remake indefinitely, but they did. The developers under Ubisoft, they care about their product, but they just don't have the, I don't know if freedom's the right word, they just don't have they're missing something. It's hard to describe, but their games can be good because we have played great Ubisoft games in the past. So they can do it.
Even the current, the Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, should be a Game of the Year nominee. It is that good. So they have
But
the
it's not going to
capacity.
be.
I doubt it will, but it definitely deserves it. It is a great game. If you all have not played the Prince of Persia: Lost Crown, you are doing yourself a disservice. So they have that capacity. I agree with you. Hell, some would argue Outlaws is good, but that's mixed. So I couldn't really say. Oh, so Gray just literally just mentioned it. So it's a mixed reception with Outlaws, but I wonder if that's more due to the game not being good necessarily, or the whining rage baiting types that are making it worse than what it seems.
There's definitely like a hatred. Like, for some reason people love to punch on Ubisoft, but I feel like a significant amount of their products are generally high quality. It's just sometimes I feel that it's like, hey, maybe don't try to nickel and dime me and like put systems inside of the game that make it much longer to be able to play when it doesn't need to be. Your games are already kind of long. Stuff like that, like things like that, I think that should be attacked, but a lot of the times I feel like people are attacking Ubisoft unfairly in comparison to like what other people in the industry does. Like it consistently surprises me that Capcom continues to get away with their egregious microtransactions that they have in all of their single player games, but most people don't recognize this because a lot of people don't try to like 1,000 out of 1,000 or to like platinum games, so you don't notice these things. But a lot of times Capcom has a lot of these things inside of their games as well, and they get away scot-free with all of this shit. So I do think that there needs to be some level of fairness inside of the gaming discussion, especially when it comes to Ubisoft. But I do want to address one thing that Assassin said. It's not to say that I'm not concerned. It's that I'm hoping that there are going to be things in the way that stop it from happening. I hope that France or regulators or someone stops Tencent, specifically Tencent. And I have a very specific reason of why I'm against large Chinese corporations buying these things. It's particularly because of the government and how the government has things set up. It's essentially like, if you're a large enough business, there are government hands inside of your business. Specifically with Tencent, a good portion of their board are direct representatives from the CCP. So,
oh wow,
like,
not enough people from the Democratic Party of China are involved. So yeah, like
So at the end of the day, there are a lot of things that I disagree that the government does, but I am also concerned, generally in the same way that you are, that Tencent will be egregious when it comes to the changes that they make towards Ubisoft. So I don't want it to happen. I'm just hoping that regulators stop it from happening.
It's interesting you say that, because earlier when our brothers K Asante and Everborn were talking about that, it got contentious in the chat with everybody in Everborn. And I remember joking, they were like, well, why did he ask just to see what we thought? What did you guys think about, Tencent essentially possibly doing it? And what do you all have against Tencent? And I jokingly said in the chat, that's because they're communists. But I wasn't too far off, it seems, because going to what you just said, to the CCP, which is, if anybody's not aware, that it's the Chinese Communist Party. So it's interesting on that, and I do tend to agree with you on that. And I think that's why so many people typically give Tencent pushback, because we're worried about the government being involved in what they do, and in some fashion relating their ideology or politics into things for whatever reason, whatever it may be, to try to influence whatever or gain footing in something. Could even be just gaining information from its users, right? It makes me think, I'm just offhand, but it makes me think of that South Park episode where they had the Chinpokumon, and the Japanese were apparently using the Chinpokumon, which was obviously a reference to Pokemon, to influence American kids to turn them into I think fighter. What they call those? What do they call those people? The but not Bunzai. What do they call them? Where they do the essentially they fly the airplanes into people. What do they call those? The
Kamikaze.
The kamikaze, turn them into kamikaze pilots and
Bar?
stuff like that. Yeah, it's kamikaze. That's it. It turned them into kamikaze. It makes
South
me
Park
think of
is
that.
wild, bro.
Yeah, they are. It makes
South
me
Park
think of
is
that though.
wild.
Yeah. But Assassin, did you want to add anything else to that before we move on, or?
Well, one thing that Lucius did mention about maybe France maybe having an... I don't see this changing anything, but you could argue that, yes, Ubisoft is one of the crown jewels for the video game industry in France, but they're not the only one. They do have another one that is on the rise, especially after Space Marine 2, since they published it. Focus Entertainment. They've actually published a lot of great games these past few years. The A Plague Tale series, Evil West.
Yes.
Recently, Banishers this year was probably considered one of the most underrated games of the year. Also published by Focus Entertainment. They could use Focus as a possible way to say, well, Ubisoft could get acquired by Tencent because we have Focus as a backup. I don't see them doing that, but it is something to think about because the gaming industry is growing everywhere. Not just the US, not just the UK and Japan like everyone thinks they are, but Africa recently have some development studios coming up, Australia,
Mm-hmm.
France.
Yep.
I think I saw some studios get built up in Singapore and Thailand, actually. Very interested in what those teams are doing. But the gaming industry is growing everywhere. And it's to say that, yes, I don't like these big corporations acquiring one another, but at the same time, the industry is so volatile. But there are so many indie devs that you could argue that it is enough of a buffer to counteract these acquisitions. I'm not saying I want these acquisitions to happen. I'm just saying that look at the reasons from all around. So yeah, I mean, I've really got nothing else to say, but honestly, with these acquisitions going on and on, I'm more interested in what these independent, indie, AA, and even AAA studios are working on, because they have some mighty talent behind them.
They really do. I mean, hell, we saw a few, and I keep advocating for this, and I actually had a discussion with our brother Paris.
Casey Hudson Studio?
Yeah, well, not even just Casey Hudson, but like in general, like even you mentioned with Abubakar Salim's studio with a Surgeon Studios, and with you mentioned other studios like Australia, for instance, Team Cherry, who made Hollow Knight. They are growing all over the place. So I tend to agree with you that we have a lot of studios and talent across the globe, which is I think speaks more to why the whole ignorant DEI woke thing discussion is so stupid, because diversity is a strength, and we start to see much more of that, and more quality games being made from talents all over the world that people would typically not expect to do it. And
Another
deliver.
French developer is the one that's making Clear Obscure Expedition 33.
Oh, good
Obviously,
one.
much
Yeah,
smaller,
Sandfall.
studio, but and I believe that might be their first game that they make. So we'll see. I'm not saying that France doesn't have anything, but it is. I think it would not be unfair to say that Ubisoft is the crown jewel of France.
France,
They've
yeah,
done a
it's
lot
growing.
and the Ubisoft has over 20,000 employees, not all of which are in France, but I would imagine
Toronto.
that France would be very cautious of a company like Tencent buying Ubisoft, because at the end of the day, a lot of employees are still located inside of France, and are you going to just let those people get fired because it's going to happen? So because there's no way that Tencent's going to take 20,000 employees and just take that to the chin. No, they're going to fire a bunch of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's it's an estimated analysis. If Tencent acquires Ubisoft, The least amount of employees go or let go would be 8,000.
Ooh.
8,000 of 20,000 people losing their jobs. And like you said, Lucius, it's not going to be the people in France. It's going to be the outsourced studios like Quebec, Toronto, Singapore. Those are the studios that are going to be hit the most. Again, not advocating for this. Absolutely don't want it to happen. Funny enough about Sandfall and Expedition 33, since you mentioned it, Lucius, nobody knows this fact as far as I know. That team is actually made up of ex-Ubisoft developers
Yep.
who were interested in Persona and Final Fantasy, and have wanted to make a game like that for a while.
Yeah, and to AJH point, no matter who got them, there will be layoffs. Obviously, there will be redundancies, of course, but 8,000, that's tough. Holly mentioned Arcane Leon, of course, which is true also. Yep.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So.
Oh, Asobo.
Oh yeah, I forgot about Asobo. Yep, that's true. We got talent, man. We got talent all over this world, man. It's
Damn, they got talent in the country with the best food, apparently.
America.
Even though it's just
America has
cheese
the
with
best food, so I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Yeah, I don't think France has the best food. They have some of the best stuff. They have some of the best chefs, and they have some of the most critical eaters.
Right.
But I don't think
Oh
they have
no,
the
it's
best
a funny thing in Europe. If you ask a European, hey, where do you think the best food in the world is? They will say France, but when they come over here or to the United States,
Mm-hmm.
they automatically change their tune because they.
Why do
I was
you
gonna say-
think Americans are so fat? If
Yeah.
our
Yeah,
food
because the
was
food is
bad,
good.
we would all be skinny.
We'd be sitting here looking like our Asian brothers if our food was bad. Shout out to our Asian brothers though, because their food is quite delicious. So maybe that's not
They
the best
are.
analogy. But yeah, still, I'm stick by that. I stick by it. No, I think America. I know it's a bit of exceptionalism, but I think America is just top tier when it comes to cuisine. Chicago in particular. We have.
Oh, part of it is,
I
that
want to
you're
try
able to get the
deep dish.
vast.
Yes.
You're able to get the vast diaspora of the world inside of America a lot of the time, especially in
True.
the bigger cities.
Yep.
You get a lot of different food from a lot of different cultures, and sometimes it's more Americanized, sometimes it's more kind of specific to that culture and like more legit. But yeah, you have all types of food in America, and like it is weird that other people's perception of American food is like hamburgers and hot dogs, and it's like really?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on?
Yeah. Hamburger. Yes, it's true. That is the perception from a lot of people we've come to see over time. So let's move into the main discussion. We are at the round table for Metaphor Refantazio. Now, I have to give a shout out to our brother Shirako, whose video I'm using for this. I didn't get any capture of it, unfortunately, but shout out to this brother. Please check him out and subscribe. Has great content. He uploads a lot of different things that I've actually used on this podcast to play as we talked about it. So again, we had Metaphor Refantazio demo go live a week ago, and man, a lot of us jumped into it, and these two gentlemen here jumped into it as well and played through it. Danny played through it, but Danny couldn't make it today, unfortunately. And it really, like I said, it opened my eyes. Now I'm new to Atlas games. I've known about them. I always had the thought to play them, but I never really gave it a chance until now. The demo was there. Why not, right? So I jumped on the Xbox, downloaded this, and booted this up. And now we see here on the screen, you got the scheming man talking here. And that's how the game opens up, with this cool anime cutscene showing the main antagonist, Louis Guilburn, assassinating the king. Now, that's not a spoiler so much because it's dead at the beginning of the game. And it's almost...
yeah, it's literally before you even get to the menu.
Exactly.
Yep.
So secondary really to everything else. It's only setting the stage for the political aspects of the game, which I, by the way, very much enjoyed because I think that adds such a deeper layer to the game personally. So myself, after the show Thursday, well, not after, but when we tried to go live Thursday and my internet was just destroyed, we stayed in this green room for about an hour, just kind of just talking and then eventually brainstorming. And shout out to you guys. And I love it when you get people who are just passionate and love what they're talking about, because it was flowing so well. I was annoyed that we could not have it recorded. It was flowing so well, the conversation we had just in the background, guys. So we ironed out some details, and we have a listing of how we want to approach this. And the first thing we're going to do is speak on the central theme behind Refantazio. And I'll start with you, Lucius, because I know you spoke to that initially, even in the green room that day. So what would you say is your central theme behind Metaphor Refantazio?
Yeah, so the story is actually really interesting and complex because the way that it presents itself is that, hey, wouldn't it be nice if you had this world that only had like one tribe and, people are treated equally and X, Y, and Z. And the way that it presents this great fantasy world is that it almost makes it seem as if it's our world, right? So the people inside of this world that you're playing in see our world as a fantasy, and we see their world as a fantasy. And it's very interesting as fantasies. A lot of the times you see a lot of the positive things about the fantasy, but you sometimes ignore the more negative things about the fantasy. Now, I won't get too deep into this because we'll get more and more into this. But the first person that you're talking to, and the person that you get into a place called Academia, which is where you can kind of change your archetypes, and is the person who kind of gives you your first archetype, like a special ability power thing. That person's name is Moore, which I find very interesting because the name Moore is probably a reference to Thomas More, the writer of the books Utopia. And those Utopia books written around the Renaissance era, which continues to be kind of a theme inside of Refantazio. It is the book is essentially about perception and how someone can think something is perfect or a utopia or perfection or whatever, but in reality, if you actually delve deep, if you stop to think about what you're being told, a lot of the times there's darkness inside of that thing. And people will allow their love of a fantasy to blind them of the truth. So I'm very excited about like how the story inside of the game will reflect the literary reference that it's very obviously making. And yeah, like I won't get super deep into it, but like it is very interesting that they chose that book, this time, this type of like perception, while also telling a story about like prejudice and racism and like why people think the way that they do. And like it's so interesting that I hope that this doesn't dissuade our less politically inclined of us to avoid this for some reason. Sometimes people will just be like, oh well, because this is political, I don't want it. Well, this thing is very much political. I want you to know, like, it may not have been hyper political at the beginning. Well, I think it was. Like you're walking up to people and they're just like, ugh, don't touch me. Right? But
yeah.
But I still look at this game and I think to myself, man, they could do so much, and as long as they properly stick the landing, this might be like straight up one of my favorite games because it has a lot of great systems to it, and the overarching story that they might be telling, it just seems like it could be incredible.
Yeah, 100% agreed. Assassin, to you, do you agree with the theme, the central theme that Lucius pointed out to this game, and what would be your if you have any differing thoughts on it? What do you have on this?
I don't really have too many differing thoughts, but the thing about Atlas games that is always one of the more hidden aspects of their games is how they delve into the human psyche, as well as the reactions to the decisions you make and the consequences of it. Metaphor absolutely takes that aspect of what makes Atlas games great, dials it up to 11. For for instance, I didn't realize this until later on. What we're seeing right now, the beginning of the game, you're just thrown from the carriage. Again, we see the prejudice, we see the racism right at the very beginning of the game.
Mm-hmm.
If you are not a specific type of tribe, you're basically seen as useless.
Yep.
What I didn't realize, and this is something very small, but I find it kind of unique. Everyone that I've talked to that has played the demo, they go straight towards the capital. If you actually take out the enemies right at the start, you'll actually get unique dialogue from Gallica saying, "Oh, I see that you're not typically prejudiced against these," or something of that nature. But anyway,
That's pretty cool.
yeah, it is. With Metaphor, it's political, yes. I agree with Lucius. It's very, very political.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, they tell the story so well, and they show off the characters off so well, you just can't help but be intrigued. It's kind of like Game of Thrones in a way, where the words being said are just as exciting as the actions that come before and after it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the decisions that you make in the game will also carry weight later on, as in all RPGs. And honestly, I think that's all I had to say, actually, Umbra. So
Yeah.
I'll pass it back on to you.
So I agree with all of that right there, and I'll touch on it this way. Pause. That even going to the political intrigue and the obvious dichotomy between him reading a fantasy book to open the game, which to me, by the way, because Lucius and I think you both pointed out that you felt it was an analogy, or not an analogy, but
it is a metaphor.
A metaphor.
It is a metaphor.
Thank you.
Everything in the game is a metaphor.
Thank you. It's a metaphor to our world versus theirs, and I felt a little different on that, because when he's reading that book and he's talking to the scheming man there, or the scheming man is narrating it at least, which I'm wondering how that's going to play out, who the scheming man essentially is. This tale that he's reading here is about this utopia, like you pointed out, Lucius, but we don't quite have a utopia here in this world. Also, too, it speaks to them having one tribe. I don't even think we people in this world see ourselves as one tribe, except maybe unless if you were to say human. But other than that,
to them, they all see us as one tribe, right? And that's the kind of thing that it's trying to show you. It's like, it's kind of the grass is always greener on the other side situation.
Okay.
It, like, when you are living inside of a world where magic is used as a power structure to suppress people, and based off of what tribe that you come from, and like these are like physical characteristics that you can't walk away from, to that, when they look at us in our world and the slight differences in pigmentation of our skin, that means nothing to them in comparison.
Right.
Okay. So like, once again, the whole concept of a utopia comes from like two Latin words, which essentially means no place.
Okay.
So like the idea of a utopia isn't even supposed to exist in the first place,
right?
Which is kind of what the book Utopia gets into. Like, our perception of the word utopia comes from this book.
I see. And from
the book Utopia.
And most typically, when we think of utopias, we think of something that's perfect, right? And
that is always the facsimile of it, right? Because every time a utopia is depicted, it is very much not perfect.
True. That is true. In most cases, it always has some underlying thing that's not seen at first, right? And to go to the point of the literary essence of Metaphor Refantazio, I agree with you 100%. The game is all focused around that. They are set in this medieval Western fantasy landscape, which I admit got me a lot, because I love these types of settings when it comes to things. You have this androgynous kid I named him Yuri. I thought it fit because I think it could go, is unisex in a sense, and it can go either for a girl or a boy. And he's clearly androgynous, and he's not super manly or feminine. He's just right there on the
he's
cusp.
super pretty.
He's
a
pretty
super
boy. Oh, he's a pretty boy
Yeah.
for sure. But but going into that thought, and I touched on this when we spoke on it, when you were elaborating, and it opened my eyes. I'm like, that's a great point you made. And we talked about the archetype, and we're not going to get into that just yet, but the archetype is also used as a literary device, and it's a universally recognized character, situation, or symbol that appears repeatedly in literature and thought. It comes from the Greek word archetypon, or archetypon rather, which is a combination of the verb archean, beginning, origin, and the noun typos, model and form. And it's a hero, a character with a momentous birthright, supernatural powers, or a remarkable sense of compassion. The hero's journey is a universal story pattern that follows the hero through an adventurous cycle. That tells the story right there of the foundation right there, essentially, of what this game is, because that is in a sense who Yuri, my kid here, is right here. He is the hero of this, and the archetypes play out into this with his powers. So let's move into the next one, and our next, I guess, I don't want to say talking point, but our next discussion part will be the UI, sound design, voice acting, animation, and art style. Blown away immediately by the animation and voice work. Sound design obviously plays into it as well. I noticed it more later on, especially during battles, where it really picked up for me. UI, you can see it fairly early on, obviously, but it evolves as you get more information, you come across more, like you mentioned, and things of that nature. What was your takeaway for, and I guess this is both of you, but and I'll start with you this time, Assassin. What was your takeaway from the UI, sound design, voice acting, animation, and art style when you first witnessed this glory?
Well, the animation specifically, I thought at first I thought that Atlas had contracted to Studio Ghibli.
It
For
did
their
seem like
quality?
that. It does seem kind of like a Studio Ghibli thing a
I
little
was
bit.
like, what? Am I watching an anime movie? Like, what is this high quality shit? Like, holy mother of God.
Yeah.
The UI, so Atlas.
Mm.
Every single time they make a UI for their games, it's unique, it stands out, and holy crap, is it colorful.
Mm-hmm.
The sound design, I'm not too big on sound if I'm being honest, but
Yeah.
when I was in combat, everything just popped off.
Yeah.
That and sound design in combat. I didn't really pay attention to the sound design when I was running or talking.
Kind of the same for me, being honest. Kind of the same. Like as I was moving around in the general sense, I wasn't really thinking about it. But once I got to combat situations, that's when I really noticed it.
Right. The voice acting, I mentioned this to you both before. Shout out again to Red Wolf Renegade. He does not like the main character's voice. He doesn't like his appearance. Now that you mentioned that the main protagonist is implied to be androgynous,
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't sound too manly or too feminine. Maybe he'll change his opinion on that.
Yeah.
I personally, my mouth dropped when he started speaking. I was like, this is the first time I'm seeing
Mm-hmm.
the main protagonist of an Atlas game actually speaking. I don't know if any protagonists in past games that Atlas has made have talked before, but it was a genuine shock to me. And he sounds great. He sounds like he is embodying the character that we are going to create. As for all the other characters that I've heard speak, top tier voice acting. This is how it should be done with every major JRPG. It is so freaking good. Like Grievous' voice is so gruff. You can actually feel like he's a veteran,
a grizzled war
veteran mercenary.
Mm-hmm.
Leon, he nailed the role of Noble.
Yeah.
And Hulkenberg, she sounds so much like an authentic knight. It's not even funny.
Yeah. I love Hulkenberg. Yeah.
Oh man,
And
I really want to go play this demo again. Okay.
I also like to that point of Hulkenberg because we're introduced to her at the beginning, literally, and then we don't see her until later on, a while later. But I just thought that was interesting how they played into this. By the way, just to touch on art style, even looking at the Igniter merchandise here, man, the art style is so gorgeous. Like, look
Oh,
how beautifully they draw these characters. That artist, and by the way, just to touch on that, just to give a bit of the foundation, uh, they have a crazy creative team behind Refantazio. Now, Studio Zero developed it, and they're also known as Creative Department Third Production, and they worked on Catherine. If you guys are aware of that, it was on that was one of the games Xbox marketed as well back in when it released. But they have talent from teams from the Shin Megami Tensei series, from Persona 3 through 5. And so the character designer is Shujinoro Shojima, and the concept artist Kozuma Koda, who I'm guessing is doing more of the mechanical work and stuff like that because he comes from the Nier Automata team. Crazy talent behind this right here. And you can see that same Persona DNA from the art style in a way, right? You can see it in some essence, and from looking at other images I've seen of past works. But man, I love this art style so much. I thought they did a really good job with that. Voice acting. To
anything
your
about
point. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, you good.
Before you continue, I just wanted to say, funny you mentioned that because I don't know if you've seen this video. Atlas did an interview with Yoko Taro, who was the creative director for Nier Automata.
Mm-hmm.
He made a video a few years back when Project Refantasy, which is known as Metaphor now, was announced.
Right.
He joked that if Metaphor had came out, then Nier is dead. Obviously, that's not the case. Nier has a huge fan base. Atlas actually went back to Yoko Taro before Metaphor demo came out, and they got some. It was kind of funny. He talked about the developer that you just mentioned. I immediately forgot his name. When he played the demo, he went up to that developer and said, "Why did you not make such a pretty game when you were working with me on Nier? Like, this is better than what you did when you were working with me. What the hell?" So yeah, I just found that a little funny. That interview, though, with Yoko Taro is hilarious, by the way.
I got to check that out. Send me the link for that when you get a chance. I got to check that out. We sometimes we don't get a lot of the, I guess, behind the scenes situation when it comes to these developers and stuff like that. And that's pretty cool. Why does this guy, the haughty captain, why does he remind me of like Carl off of what's the name of that Aqua Team Hunger Force? Shake Zilla. It makes me think of old boy with blonde hair and horns. Anyway, Lucius, to you, my brother, what were your thoughts on the whole, I guess, as it relates to the UI and sound design, voice acting, animation, and everything, and art style of Refantazio?
UI, incredible. Every single person, like, if this doesn't win Game of the Year, I understand there's a lot of good games this year, right? But if this doesn't win something for UI, design, art, something, travesty, actual travesty.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is one of the menu system is so smooth, everything is so stylistic, it really kind of gets you in the vibe of everything. Atlas yet again cooked. The character designs are fantastic. The music is absolutely incredible, and once again, like it's one of those things where it's like when you have a game that you're going to play for 100-200 hours, the music has to be good because you're going to be hearing it all the time, like constantly. So, and I can tell that this is one of those things where it's like I'm never going to get sick of this music. So very, very excited for the game, very excited for everything that was done. There's two things that I'll kind of get into some depth though. And the first one is a criticism. I think that the industry does not go after Eastern developers enough when it comes to texture quality.
Talk to that.
I remember you talking about that.
I do remember you talking about this, and even when you said it, I excused them. Yeah.
Or when you look at the wall, it looks like ass, right? It just looks bad.
Yeah.
And this is a problem that a lot of JRPGs, a lot of Japanese developers have, in where maybe it's one of those things where they intentionally don't put in that much effort into something because the level of effort in comparison to how good it will look, maybe that's why Western development is so expensive, because they focus on those things that maybe a lot of people don't think matter. But at the end of the day, I had to point it out because as beautiful as the aesthetic is, sometimes the graphic portions of it are not great. And for how not graphically intensive it just doesn't look graphically intensive, but when you run it on your computer, it doesn't run great. So though this is coming out very soon, I would say that most of the time when it mattered, the combat, like it ran very smooth. But when running around in the like the world, sometimes you could get some pretty serious stutters and hitchbacks. So
Yeah.
that would be my main complaint.
And to elaborate, you played on both the Xbox and a handheld when you had a chance.
So I played on Xbox first, then I went on my PC handheld, where I played on that, and then I went back to the Xbox where I played my third playthrough, but this one where I kind of really maximized everything so that way I could just use that save for day one launch.
Very nice. So myself, I played on Xbox predominantly. I did load it up to the Ally the other day, but I didn't get enough time in to judge it. I know that they have it has been pointed out to them and they've addressed it. They said they will patch that and have that ready by launch. So
yeah, they
hopefully.
will patch some things, but there's just like when you go into your settings menu in like most Western developed games, there's just a myriad of different options, sliders, all this sort of stuff.
Right.
Eastern devs have a problem where it's just like, bro, you go into the settings and it's super bare bones. There's like 7 settings. There's practically no anti-aliasing. Like, what are we doing here? This is not me saying that this game is not going to be worth it, because I think 1,000,000% that this game is going to be worth it. But it's just some shade that I had to throw because I feel as if the industry generally does not give them enough pushback regarding that.
That is really a fair point, because I remember when you mentioned it that day, I didn't think about it like that. And even in my head, I was kind of like saying like, let me come to the defense of that. But I was like, no, he's out of pocket, but he's right. No, I'm joking. But
yeah. It's just one of those things.
It is.
But here's what I will say. Now that I got my grievances out of the way,
Yes.
let's talk about the inspiration for this art. So, Renaissance era artist Hieronymus Bosch has some very specific references towards this, and the art style that he created was about like these horrific images of humanity, and they were supposed to depict the inside monsters that we have inside of all of us. And as you know, or the very specific enemies that they have in Metaphor Refantazio are humans. That isn't too big of a spoiler because they literally say it in one of their marketing things. But the way that humans are depicted are not the way that typically we understand humans to be depicted. It is these gross, terrifying creatures. And if you guys look inside of the guest chat, I posted a couple pictures by Hieronymus Bosch. And if you've played the demo, you can notice initially that first picture. Oh, that's like one of the first enemies that you fight.
Let me actually highlight that now that you mentioned it. Okay, it's off center.
Are you guys able to see the picture?
Yeah, let me.
I'm checking Discord right now, actually.
I'm actually putting it
in the guest chat.
Guest chat.
Okay, it's off center. Hold on. Let me go back.
Come on, Discord, load up.
Okay, so I'm trying to get it together for the
I don't know if
background.
is still here. He muted.
Umbra. All right,
I am still here.
Okay.
Sorry, I was trying to get it together to show it on the screen, and I forgot I muted. Sorry about that, guys.
Yeah, actually,
yeah.
yeah, that does look like that looks like the boss that we fought in the castle, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah, that's like one of the first enemies that you fight when it like teaches you how to fight things, and you're just like, oh, blah blah. So like like the references that this game is making are very particular, hyper specific. They know what they're doing. There's a lot of literary references there. There's a lot of artistic references to very specific artists in the Renaissance era. And some of the enemies that I've seen, there's like this one crazy enemy that has like this crazy tongue or whatever. I haven't seen it in the game yet, but I've seen it as a part of their marketing thing. That is so much like one-on-one Hieronymus Bosch. Not the apple tree one, the egg one. The egg enemy that you first go against.
Right, the very first enemy that you fight in the castle
Yeah,
when you open the door. Yeah.
That egg one is represented by almost one-to-one an image by Hieronymus Bosch. So just throwing that out there from a Renaissance historical standpoint, like that's where the artistic style is kind of coming from. And a lot of the enemies I expect to have a very particular artistic look based off of Hieronymus Bosch.
So I was going to upload or at least highlight that from the Discord, but I do not have the settings for it put in properly, so it's off centered. And even going to do that would have ruined what I have playing currently on the screen, so I don't even want to touch it right now, unfortunately. But Hieronymus Bosch.
It is what it is.
Yeah, if you guys can look that up, Hieronymus sounds like an Autobot a little bit, doesn't it? Hieronymus Prime. It's H-E-I-E rather. Hieronymous. Bosch. B-O-S-C-H. And you can definitely see the influence from this in this game. 100%. I saw one of the later bosses that we don't get a chance to get to in the demo who looked pretty much like that first image you shared, Lucius.
Yep.
Yeah, so you can see that. It's definitely have a Hieronymus background, Hieronymus Prime art style to it. And it's very like you said, a very Renaissance stylistic kind of choice as far as the world. And the characters themselves have a mixture of, I guess, your typical kind of isekai, slash persona style to me. That's the way I look at it. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you wrote it in the chat. Okay. Yeah, check that out, guys. Lucius typed the name in the chat. Check that art style out really quick. Just Google that, and you'll see what he's talking about. Definitely can see the influences there 100%. For the UI, I'll add, I really liked it. I think it's top notch. Just artistically how everything plays into one another. It's an ultra stylistic game. Just really cool, and I think I really appreciated that about it. Art style, we talked on. The voice acting surprised me because I played it with the dub, and with the sub first.
Yeah.
So I had just heard it with the Japanese, actors doing their thing and reading it. I didn't think to switch it because I had assumed.
Typically with JRPGs, I do play them in the original language, Japanese, just because there is a different feel to it. But because this was a fantasy, more Western aesthetic, I thought that it was more appropriate to play it in English, in the same way that I think that playing Final Fantasy 16 is more appropriate in English because of the setting and the characters.
Makes
and all
sense.
that other stuff. So
I get it.
So for me, I just played it in English and was incredibly surprised at how good the voice acting was.
So it's very solid, and I saw it after the fact by watching some videos on YouTube, and I was like, "Wow, this is good." I expected them to also be subbed, but when I started hearing them speak, I'm like, "Wait a minute, They actually have full of English actors doing it, and they were really good. It sounded as comparably great as the our Japanese brothers on it to me. So it's very clear that they have a lot of quality put behind this title, even if the visuals, may not necessarily match up to them in technical ways. I would say. Moving on to story, which is our third leg of this discussion. Refantazio is set as Lucius, as you kind of touched on early in the beginning of this discussion, in this kind of magical medieval Western setting in a fantasy landscape, and we're dealing with racism. I don't want to. How do we properly say this? I want to say a tier system, but that's essentially what it is. But it's a name for that. I cannot think of the name for that right now. But there are
it's a caste system.
A hierarchy, I suppose. Caste. That's it. It's a caste system essentially. And in the essence of that, our main character is part of what they call the Elder tribe, and he looks the most human out of most characters, which is interesting, by the way, because
human to us, of course.
Humans being us, the humans are the enemies of this game, and they look grotesque and monstrous, and much like the Hieronymus Bosch designs.
Like Bushido if he got out of bed.
Exactly. But for our main character here, the main protagonist, he is part of the Elder tribe, and his power and the reason why they're seen and hated as much as they are, the Elder tribe, is because they have a very unique power and magical ability that the church of this world, which is possibly a bit of a theocracy going on in this world because of how ranking the church is. Their church, called Sanctism, has deemed them to be tainted people. Also, and also the Elder are very rarely seen, so a lot of people don't typically see them much. Our main protagonist is like one of the last few remaining ones too, from what the story describes. And much like you said, Lucius, earlier, it was the reaction is typically, get away from me. That's how they're seen.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Like in one situation, there's one side mission where you essentially just get a medicine for this guy who's just not able to get medicine because racism. So you're just like, all right, bet, I'll get the medicine for you. You go inside of the church to get the medicine for the guy, and the guy's just kind of like, oh, so you just want this medicine? And I'm just like, yeah, bet, give me this medicine. And he's like, all right, cool. For an Elder, that'll be triple.
Oh.
And I'm like, yo, what? What do you mean for an Elder that's gonna be triple?
See, I couldn't hear that if I was part of the Elder, and it's funny just thinking about it, but seeing the division, I could not help but relate that to just real life in a way, right? With the discrimination.
Which, once again, it is a metaphor for real life.
Absolutely, it is, and it did make me, fall back to the treatment of our people. Assassin, you're our people for tonight. When it comes to just racial discrimination.
We talk about how blacks were slaves. We never talk about how the Mexicans were slaves either.
Well, there you go. See, we're brothers in slave arms.
At least y'all stories were told. Ours were never told.
There you go. We gotta get you to make a video on that to elaborate. No, I'm joking, but definitely educate us. Speak to that. Speak to that. Actually, when we get to you on this, I want you can elaborate a bit. But that part of it definitely spoke to me from being and I'm going to use woke appropriately here, being a relatively woke brother and understanding and conscious of these things. I did notice it did kind of relate to a lot of what real life is, in a sense, where because of the caste system that plays into so much of society, even still to this day in a lot of different societies overseas in particular. India is
India specifically
by it.
still has,
Oh yeah.
literally still has a caste system.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Openly.
just based off of who you are, like how you, what caste that you were born in,
Mm-hmm.
you could just be cooked for the rest of your life.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like no opportunities, nothing. Like it's
Nothing.
crazy.
Yep. I believe Dominican Republic is probably, I think, a part of that as well.
They do have their own issues.
Yeah,
Well,
for
yeah.
sure. So, all of that played into that, and I think maybe that was part of what really pulled me into the story more too. Was just like you have this sense of wanting to overcome this setting, right? You want to get to that utopia, so to speak, that the first opening fantasy kind of reveals itself to. I have a sense that it's not going to go quite that way, even if this world eventually becomes one tribe, as they discussed.
Yeah.
But I really do.
It's never that easy. In the same way that in our own world, if we want our own world to be better, it's not going to be this like automatic like, yay, we solved racism. No, it's going to be this hard process in where like you're gonna have to convince people to do the right thing and not to think the way that they do, and you have to incentivize them to be able to like like the entire dynamic needs to change, and like that's why I'm very interested to see what this show does, because unlike what's his name, who made Detroit become human. That game was like one-to-one an analogy for black people, but when you ask the creator, hey, like what do you think about this, and he's like, oh no, this is not what I'm trying to make. Really, bro? Really? You're not trying to make this, despite the fact that it's like almost one-to-one. Like some of the same things that these robots are going through are also things that certain people are going through inside of America. You just did that by accident. Like, so I think that because the Atlas team are taking it straight on, and they know what they're creating, you're not going to have the fumbling like you do with is his name David Cage, or I don't know, but
it's
like,
David something.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm very excited based off of the way that everything's kind of setting up.
What would you say, Assassin, to the story of how it connected to you, and do you like the political intrigue behind it, and the I guess the theocracy with the sanctism? Like what did it speak to you on that?
Well, the concept of utopia and fighting for what you believe in. So obviously, it's a tale as old as time. We all grew up wanting to be the hero, wanting to unite the world in our own utopia. But the problem is, every person in the world has their own perception of what a utopia is. My utopia would be that gamers would stop getting the fucking rotting iron being blamed for causing violence. That's been disproven many times. Obviously, that's not going to change within a day. I know my utopia is simple, but it's my utopia. Mine. But my utopia is different than Umbra's. It's different than Lucius. They both may have bigger aspirations for what a utopia may be. And that's the thing. Everyone has so many different viewpoints, and that's just for one person. Rome wasn't built in a day. Racism will not be solved in a day. It will probably take multiple lifetimes. And it's something to point out, ironically, we play video games to get away from this stuff, and yet the game that we're most hyped for deals with this stuff. I just want to point out that's a kind of a funny there, if I'm being honest. Honestly, I'm a bit more interested in the story as a whole. Yes, the racism part and the theocracy and everything, the political elements of the game obviously intrigue me enough to keep playing. But it's the fact that we as the protagonist, we're charged in fighting that. We are in charge of trying to unite the people to fight against the main antagonist. By literally trying to create a utopia and fighting against the caste system that this world that Metaphor lives in has had for generations. That's our job. To create the utopia by fighting the system that prevents it from happening. by trying to help our best friend, who is dying, by the way, to get him enough support to when he finally gets cured of the curse that he's being cursed with, that you and him could actually get this off the ground. To get to the utopia that he sees every time he opens the book. The same utopia that Moore wants us to create. That is what intrigues me more, to be honest. How do I convince the people to strive to be better? Because there will always be people that do not want things to change. There will always be terrible, terrible people who want to keep the system the way that it is because it benefits them. This game goes against that. That's what excites me more, story-wise. Obviously, Umbra, you have something to say, so go ahead.
No, to your point there, I think that's well said. And yeah, I mean, I guess metaphor is going to speak to us differently as far as what that utopia for us is. For me, I guess my utopia would be something akin to world peace, right? Something that's just unattainable, essentially. But yeah, I appreciate how you broke that down, though. And I do wonder, though, like when I think back to our main character opening the story with that book, it seems to have a central point in the story. And I just want to, I'm trying to, my detective side brain of me, my detective brain is trying to figure out how that works itself out. Also with the scheming man, going back to that, I don't think they're going to name the man Scheming Man unless he's doing something dirty, right, or shady. So I just wonder how that all plays out into this story as well, and why that book is so important.
It does indicate to some extent that there's a chance that Moore, the person who you interact with that kind of gives you the abilities and all that other stuff,
right,
may have some connection to the Scheming Man, may have been the Scheming Man himself at some point, but something may have happened where he lost his memories. So like there's an additional B plot that also exists there as well.
Okay, yeah, that makes some sense. I do wonder if it plays into the archetype situation because of how they're patterned off of kings and royals of old, as they put it, antiquity, as Moore said it, which of course is old and like unrecorded time, essentially. So I just wonder.
One thing that we talked about in our discussion on Thursday, Lucius brought it up, and I didn't think about it until he did. Every Atlas game that we've talked about beforehand, and Danny confirmed this, Atlas games, they always have a main antagonist, but then they also have a second hidden antagonist behind it. Persona 3, 4, and 5 specifically, they had a human antagonist each time. But like Lucius said on Thursday, you fight fucking God at the end.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, you fight some type of God. So we're obviously going to fight against, what was this? What's the antagonist's name again? I forgot.
Louis Guyaburn.
Yeah, so Louis will obviously be the main antagonist that we're trying to get. But I have a feeling he's not going to be the final antagonist.
I kind of had that
He obviously got his aspirations from somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Whatever God and metaphor, again, God in metaphor is probably a metaphor.
Well, yeah, because God in every JRPG is a metaphor for. So, if you kind of, the more you learn about like Japanese culture, the more you understand like it can be very repressive, and a lot of the people who create video games are the artists, are the eccentric people, are the the people who like love to express themselves. And in a society where expressing yourself, like there's a terminology that is very popular amongst Asian cultures. It's found both inside of Japanese and Chinese cultures. It says the nail that sticks out gets the hammer. And essentially that mentality says don't stick out, because if you do, you'll get all the negative things associated with sticking out. And inside of a society that's more collectivist, it does not advocate for individuality as much. And that can be extremely stifling for somebody who's a creative. So that's why inside of all these JRPGs, at the very end of the day, you're fighting God, because what God is society. You're fighting society's repressive dictation of who you should be, and you're freeing yourself from that restriction.
Interesting. Yeah, I got me some Persona 3 to play. I'm not trying to fight God though. Hey God, I still got your back.
I would still say
You're fighting God in P3. You're fighting
yeah,
God, and you're going to pay
yeah,
for
you're
it.
gonna fight God. But
No.
but what I will say is that anybody, if all of this sounds interesting, please pick up Metaphor Refantazio,
Mhm.
because there are so many things about it that I like more than I do like, I really do like Persona games, but I like Metaphor. There's a lot of things about the combat system that we'll get into at some point,
Mhm.
that just makes it easier to grind. There's things that if you pay attention to, you could take advantage of certain stuff. Like it's really nice. It brings the difficulty of Shin Megami Tensei and the difficulty of Persona, and like is somewhere in between those. And if you know, Persona games tend to be a little easier, at least on the combat side, but they tend to be kind of harder on like the social link side. Like you really have to know what you're doing to like interact with people the right way.
Mm.
But the SMT, where the difficulty comes in, is the combat, because that combat is hard as shit. Like SMT 3,
Mhm.
it is notorious that people don't even get past the tutorial because it's so hard.
Damn.
What the fuck?
Oh
Yeah, and Shin Megami Tensei is known to be incredibly difficult. So like if you've only played Persona and then you jump into Shin Megami Tensei, you will get your ass beat. But Metaphor is something really in between, and it gives you enough tools to deal with that difficulty.
Okay. That's interesting on that. We'll move to the fourth leg of this discussion to keep it moving. And the fourth leg is the characters. We won't stay on this too long, but speaking of the characters, we already spoke on the more androgynous protagonist here on screen, who is voiced by Natsuki Hane, and our Japanese brother, at least. This character, I believe, internally is named Will, or the traveling boy, as they put it at times. Definitely not naming him either of those. Will does not seem to fit him at all to me. But yeah, so he is of the Elder Tribe. We've discussed that a bit. And then you have his companion, the fairy, Gallica. And she is voiced by Sumaya Morohoshi in Japan. She's not only just a companion, but she's also the guide who kind of helps us carry out the mission to try to save the prince, our friend. And then you have Stroll, who Assassin was mentioning earlier, who is a noble. He's from the Klimar tribe, who is typically, from what I remember reading, are one of the higher classes in this.
They're typically regarded as the higher class. They are the
Mhm.
ones that typically are a part of the government.
Yep.
They take up high level governmental positions, and
A lot of them are
both
nobles too. Yep.
both the king and his killer are
Are
of
from the
that
Klimar
class.
tribe. Exactly.
Yep.
And I want to ask you guys about Louis Guyaburn in a minute, because he looks so reminiscent if you guys read manga, and I bet you would know who I'm speaking of automatically by me saying that. And then we have, of course, Hulkenberg, who I know you mentioned a while ago, Assassin. Hulkenberg is essentially the elf. She's of the elf race, essentially, in this game, which is of the Rosant tribe. And she's voiced by Sayori Hoyami in Japan. She looks so cool to me. Red-haired, got the elf ears popping, very regal looking. They are also, I believe, one of the higher end tribes in this world, probably second to the Klimar, if not third. They are typically, I think, also you'll find a lot of them also in the military or into noble positions as well. Then we have now. I did not run across this character, but he looks like a mixture of a bat slash rabbit, and his name is Hisme, and he's a former knight of the Ugief tribe. That's Eugief. Ugief. I'm guessing it was pronounced. Excuse me, tribe. From what I've seen, from things after the fact, really cool character. I saw the female counterpart of this tribe as well. Looks really cool. He looks like a bat, like a white bat, but with kind of like rabbit ears, if that makes any sense, and rabbit eyes too. Actually, got the little red eyes, not little, but he got red eyes like a like a rabbit would have. And then, of course, we have the follower system. So you'll meet a lot of different characters that's going to fall into that. But that's part of the social discussion we'll get into briefly. But one of the main characters, obviously, is of Louis Guilbert, who you mentioned. My question to you guys, have you all ever read Berserk?
Yes.
Now, would you agree that, and it's probably just an archetype thing that, our Japanese brothers tend to go to, right? Because tropes exist everywhere. You're going to kind of go to what you know. Louis seems like a metaphor, if you will, of Griffith from Berserk. Would you agree with that in a sense?
I could see that.
Yeah. Assassin, have you ever played or seen Berserk?
I have not, but I have heard of it. Actually,
Oh.
recently at work, people were talking about it.
He has the powerful but beautiful aesthetic to him. He is incredibly powerful and dangerous, ruthless.
Yep.
Yeah, so I see a lot of similarities
A l-
between him and Griffith. I
And-
do see what you're saying.
You can see it, right? And also, too, of course, he does betray the king, as we see. And he's a king slayer at the beginning of the game. At the beginning of the game, we get to see. So he definitely has that betrayal part that Griffith expresses at one point. I don't want to say too much because Assassin, you definitely should get into that. I would highly recommend it. I would say read it, not even check out the anime, because some of those are hit or miss.
All right.
Yeah, some of them are hit and miss, but the manga or the books are very good.
Yeah. So definitely check that out. For the characters, though, what would you guys say? Going to you on it first, I suppose, Assassin. What was your take on these characters? Are you feeling them? Do you have any criticisms to them? Do you care for the main character at all? Like, I know you mentioned obviously Stroll, and that you did like him and such. But what would you say? And if going by you guys' thoughts on the whole secondary character thing, do you think the main character might just be somebody who is eventually surpassed by another character or something like that in the story?
No. I think the main character is still going to be the main character. Like, I don't think that's going to change in any way. But I think the characterization of all these characters is really good. And in previous Persona games, the friends that you made, they represented the archetypes, right? But in this game, the archetypes are simply a tool to be used, a literary device, and the characters themselves are their own fully fleshed characters. It's not to say that in Persona they weren't fully fleshed out previously, but it is to say that there is a difference between the way that Persona characters were written, which were very like, I would say one level, right? It was like, oh, this person represents this sort of archetypal character, and nobody's that how would I say, nobody's that basic in Metaphor Refantazio. The characters are significantly more complex.
Yeah, I can agree. What about you on that, Assassin? Did you have any dislikes for the characters you've seen so far? It seems like they've kind of avoided some of the more annoying tropes that I find in a lot of anime and things like that at times.
Absolutely not. I have no issues with the characters However, I mean, what else? What else is there to say? The main protagonist is actually, I'm not gonna say he's basic, but he actually feels like how I would be if I was in a setting like this. I'm just a normal person. I've just been hit with just an enormous task. Really, I mean that's how anybody would feel, right? As far as what Lucia said about Persona characters, I do agree. How in Persona they represent the archetype, like the typical. Umbra, this will be lost on you, but Lucius, you're playing through it right now. You got Yukari, who's the typical high school popular girl. You got Junpei, who's the typical class clown archetype. But then you look at the characters in Metaphor, they're not the representation of the archetype. They are the archetype. You got Leon, who's the typical noble, but he has the heart of a warrior who wants to see change. You got Hulkenberg, who was a guard for the prince, and she set out to find the prince for so long. But she is still a knight at heart. Her main duty is to protect the kingdom of Uchronia. That is her as a character. Then you look at Grius, the typical grizzled veteran mercenary, but he's more than that. He doesn't just stick to the sword. He tried his hand at magic. He tries to adapt. He tries to learn in every situation.
He did.
Here
That's
in
true.
Persona's characters are amazing. I like every single one in P3. I'm liking the ones in P4, and I have no doubt I will love the ones in. But Metaphor's characters, they're so three-dimensional that I don't consider them characters. I consider them real people. That's just how good those characters are written.
And one more thing to add to that, it speaks to the transformability of the characters, and this is something that is done extremely well because it is reflective in the game mechanics. Everyone can switch archetypes, which means that no one is limited to a certain personality type or anything. Everyone has room to grow, not in just one direction, but in every direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do like that. The archetype system is actually one of the more intriguing parts to me for this. But I guess we can move into that bit of discussion. Well, we have the social simulation, which is technically next. But let's say we just move into combat first, since that was brought up. Combat and the archetype system. And AJH actually asked about that. He says, can anyone explain to me why the fuck they're ripping their hearts out?
That hit so hard when I first played
It
through
hits
and he
so
ripped
hard,
out his fucking heart. I was like,
Yeah.
bro, what is this? In
bro. And the
Persona, you
voice
shoot a
acting while
gun or
it's
you.
happening. Oh,
Oh,
it's
I
so good.
loved it, man. He was like, what did he say? I think he said awaken, right? Yeah. He's like, awaken. Ripped it out. And I'm like, I'm stupid, so forgive me, but it made me think of Christmas Story. He was like, you'll shoot your eye out, kid. And I was like, you'll rip your heart out, kid. And he ripped this metal heart out. And obviously, I think that's also calling to the whole title of Metaphor, right? Because clearly he's not dead. And it's a mechanical heart. But then it made me, in my mind, I started going all over the place. I'm like, wait a minute. Are they secretly androids? I didn't understand a lot of that, but I think it's all a part of the whole point of Metaphor is that they have to speak these words essentially to kind of solidify their resolve, as you'll notice. And
they have to speak their heart out, literally.
They have to speak their heart out and their intent. And once they do, they are bestowed this power. Now, what I liked about this, so AJH, to that point, the ripping the heart out thing, I believe, is more of a metaphor versus them actually really ripping into their chests. We first see it obviously with the main character, but the archetype system plays off of his power, and which is why the Church of Sanctism deems them the tainted people, because their power of theirs is anything that somebody doesn't understand, they're going to demonize typically, right? And that's what that is for them. So their powers, the Elder Tribe, allows for them to call into this ancient power of the archetype system. that plays into this game. And much like Lucius was mentioning
and
a while ago,
seemingly subsequently share it with people that they are connected to.
absolutely, which goes into the whole social part as well. It plays into that a bit. And his companions around him, as Lucius was pointing out, once they have enough resolve, being around his power allows him to share it, even unconsciously, to them to activate that within themselves as well. So just getting into that, just to kind of elaborate, the combat system, we have the fast action, I believe they call it the fast combat style of system. It's a fusion style, by the way, for those who don't know. You have the fast action based battle, which is real time. Basically, you can run around, and as you all may have seen in the gameplay here, how he's slicing up enemies or cutting down cartons and boxes or whatever. You can run up to enemies, especially lesser types. You can do it to even to more intermediate enemies as well. But if the enemy is weaker than you, you don't even have to enter into the main battle scene. You can cut them down with your weapon of choice and keep it moving from there if you can take them out. But what was you guys' take on that? Assassin, I'll start with you on this. What was your take on the combat and the archetype system?
Well, first off, just like to say it again, the ripping out the heart scene to awaken the archetype, awesome. Holy crap. As far as the combat goes, I've played 200 hours of Persona 3. Turn-based is nothing new to me, but it's clean. It is absolutely phenomenal. As far as the real-time hack and slash element, that is an interesting and unique addition that I wish Atlas does for future games. If you manage to cut down the defenses of the enemy before you go into turn-based, you will stun them, and you will do additional damage with your first attack.
Yeah, upwards to
but that's mainly for medium to... Right. But that's usually for medium to higher level enemies than what level you are now. Like Umbra said, if you attack an enemy who's lower than you and you do enough damage, you won't have to go into turn-based combat. I was surprised with how often I was able to actually win the battle before I even managed to press Y to initiate turn-based.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If I'm being honest, I was like, wait, did I just beat all the enemies? I wanted to go into turn-based combat, but I beat all the enemies before I even had a chance to press the Y button.
And
holy crap!
Okay, so like I didn't appreciate this as much when I first went through my playthrough, but after my third playthrough of the demo, I was just kind of like, oh, this thing is genius. Because one of the things that you have to do in like a lot of JRPGs, like if you're looking for low percentage weapons drops, if you're grinding for money, if you're just grinding for XP, like that process gets incredibly annoying after a while. This makes it so that way the moment that you are strong enough to just take out the enemies, you don't have to really deal with it. And there's each archetype that you switch to gives you a specific weapon, right? And that specific weapon is also going to have its own weapon animation during the more free flowing open world kind of fights.
Yeah.
If you equip the mage archetype, and if you're strong enough to just take out enemies, you can press X to just do the attack that the mage does, and it does an AoE attack that like hits things all around you. So if you want to just go up and down the dungeon grinding for money and everything else, it's super easy to do that because now you don't even have to get into like turn-based battle to do it. It quickens the process. You get a lot of XP. You get most of the XP that you would have gotten via the combat. Yeah, the combat system is so good. Outside of the archetypes, there's also the front and the back system that they have, where the front is going to, if you attack using melee weapons, you're going to do more damage out there, but you also take more damage.
Yep.
But if you're a mage, you want to be in the back if you're doing like range damage most of the time. So
somebody like Hulkenberg would be best in front for essentially.
Exactly.
She's a more of a tank. Yep.
And this plays into
Yeah, and if you have the mage
combat.
archetype, you'd be in the back.
You'd
Right.
be in the back most of the time. So like the main thing that like is always really cool for me is that you the entire battle ecosystem is based off of strengths and weaknesses, and it allows you to be able to take additional turns to be able to take advantage of that stuff. There I could talk about how great this combat system is for days, but you just have to interact with it yourself, because
Mhm.
as you go through more and more and more into the demo, they start introducing additional mechanics that really elevate the combat.
I was
And
happy about that, by the way, because at
yeah,
first it felt simple, right? Like,
yeah, it's
that's
very
it.
simple at the very beginning,
Yep.
but like they keep adding more and more systems, so that way it's far more dynamic. And what I will say, uh, just a small hint for those who are going to play the game. At the very beginning, there is a fat, blonde man who is speaking incredulously about you while you try to join the city guard, right?
Yes.
That person asks you a question. He's like, "Hey, why would we even want you here?" Right? And then there's a series of answers that you can give. I'm gonna tell you this now. Those answers matter. Each one of those answers correspond to one of your stats, and they will make it so that way that particular stat will grow faster than all of your other stats. And the way that the leveling up system works is as you level up, you are given 2 points. 1 point, the system automatically distributes it somewhere depending on that question that you were asked damn near at the beginning of the game. And the second point that you get every single level, you get to choose where to put it. So if
Very
you
unique.
really want to min-max something, if you want to create a mage, like primarily the archetype that you'll be using is mage, so you'll be switching every now and then, but your primary one is a mage. If that's what you want to do, choose the second answer, which is like, oh, I'm kind of smart. If you want to be more of a warrior, somebody who's doing a lot of damage, physical damage, the first answer, it's like, oh, I'm kind of strong. Every single one of those answers corresponds to the location of your stats. So just look up how your stats are like lined up, and then answer based off of which stat you really want to grow.
Yeah, good point.
I chose the I can take a punishment
Mm.
answer, and I'm pretty sure that increases your defense
Yeah,
more
exactly.
when you level up.
Yeah, it increases your endurance, so like both the defense and health.
One thing you guys haven't mentioned yet, and I brought it up last time, and I'm going to do it again.
Yeah.
One thing about Persona and Shin Megami Tensei, you play as the main character. You get knocked out, you're done. In Metaphor, you get knocked out, the party continues fighting, and you get a chance to revive.
Mm-hmm. I experienced that, by the way.
Absolutely amazing quality of life gameplay mechanic that Atlas should do for P6. You have no idea how many times when I played P3 on hard mode, when I wasn't fully leveled up and ready for a fight, I would get knocked out, but my party is still full health and I had to redo the fight.
Oh, that sucks.
Here in Metaphor, I got knocked out maybe 3 times, but the party was still going. First time that happened, I was flabbergasted. I was like, wait a minute, I don't have to do the fight again? I can keep going? And I managed to get Leon to revive me. And we won the fight. Again, Atlas has learned, or they have listened to criticism of their games, and like From Software, they found a way to appease those criticisms while staying true to what made them successful in the first place. Love you, Atlas. Thank you. Anyway, you two, what do you think about that?
Yeah, Lucius, you can go first on that.
Yeah, that's also a problem that I have with Like a Dragon as well. When Ichiban dies, passes out, whatever, then the entire team is done. I don't remember if if that also did it for like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. They may have changed that for Infinite Wealth as well. But yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of when the main character gets knocked out, then you have to redo the fight again. It just makes it so that way, as an RPG player, I'm just giving my main character all the best defensive stuff, even if that doesn't really work for his build, because I don't want that person to die, right? In comparison to in this game, like I know that I'm trying to make a glass magical cannon. Like that is the objective of what I'm trying to do. So like I know, put my person in the back. I know, give them specific things that benefit magic, right? Now I don't have to worry about like, oh, if this person gets knocked out, like I'm cooked. No, like I don't have to worry about that at all. The one of my people will just revive them and then that's it. But like it may not sound like a big deal for a lot of people, but I will say if you're the type of person who've played these Persona games for a long time, who've played these sort of JRPGs for a long time, you know how much how amazing it is, the fact that you can still continue to play the game despite the main character being knocked out, which it is very much an underappreciated thing.
Absolutely, I would agree with that. And I haven't played rather a ton of JRPGs, but I've played enough. And the ones I love the most are the ones where your party still matters. And so having the main character KO'd or whatever should not be the end of that battle. I played the Octopath Traveler games, beat them both, even the final secret boss. And like I said, I have 250 or 60 hours in both, right? Like crazy hours. And so my mind is trained to the other characters should matter and have to essentially hold their own weight, even if the main character goes down. But I do agree with you, Lucius, on the fact that if that forced style of, if the main character goes down, then that's it. It forces you essentially as a gamer to say, okay, well, I have to change my style for that character, which takes you out of creativity in a way, right? So now I have to make sure they're not a glass cannon, as you pointed out. I have to put on defensive buffs and armors and whatever to make sure they survive, and that changes essentially the play style you may want to use for that character. I saw, by the way, your screenshot for your time in the game, and I guess it was the after damage report, and you were like level 19 at the time. So I know you put some time into this demo, but your powers were your skill points were all into the magic, the magic category. And I looked like, where's your points at? You at level 19. And I'm looking at everything else at like level 7, 8, whatever. I'm like, where are your points? And then I look down and see magic. I'm like, oh, his magic was like level 29. I'm like,
oh my God.
Yeah. So you very much were the glass cannon magical.
Bro, I'm blowing people up.
I bet.
Blowing people up.
I saw it. That was funny to me. Hell, I might have to pattern. I typically go for kind of a all-arounder type when I typically
I think that you're going to be able to have a lot of different play styles that are going to be viable. It's just that whenever I can make a glass cannon magic build, I always try to do it because it's a very interesting dynamic, because it makes some because
risk and reward, it sounds like.
Yeah, there's a huge risk and reward, and because Persona, Shin Megami Tensei, and Metaphor are also heavily they're also heavily like weakness and strength based, that if you have the spell that is essentially the weakness of an enemy, and you could take advantage of that, and so it's gonna be a weakness, and you have a high possibility of crit, and you may as well pump the points into there, and they're gonna fucking explode.
Yeah, for sure. So just to add to that, and so on the interest of time, I want to finish this, do a bit of the sim talk. We'll have to get through that relatively fast, and then I want to get final thoughts on what you guys think could be the score for this, and where you think it might land, if as far as reception, and then we'll wrap it up. But just to add to this, the archetype system, which again I really did enjoy, and essentially I thought I thought maybe it was kind of too simple. I'm like, is this what Persona games are? They're simple. It's like, oh, I just got a little power, but I can't do too much except throw a little wind thing at you or cut you. So I'm like, I wish it did more. But then I saw that path that leads to that, because it even tells you weak attack, blah, blah, blah. Well, then naturally there must be a stronger version. And then I saw some stuff after the fact, videos that show different types of archetypes and different power sets. And you actually learn from this, from more, that even the archetypes that you start off with, the one that he essentially gives you, the Seeker, that evolves too. So it's not like you're stuck at that one, I guess, archetype, but that archetype also evolves into like 2 or 3 different levels. So for instance, the Seeker archetype evolves into the Magic Seeker, which wields the wind magic for passive and passive effects, and that evolves into the Soul Hacker, the more powerful magic, including MP recovery and penetration resistance. So there are so many different ways that it evolves right here. Reading up on it and how you can go to the academia to level up and change things. It's divided into 14 different lineages, the archetype system. And that is the Seeker, which is the more versatile, well-rounded job. It's a job system, by the way, for those wondering. And that's probably what I would stick to for the main character, because it started off that way, and I'm kind of a sucker for that narrative thought, you know what I mean? And I'm more of a well-rounded type when it comes to the main character, so I'm going to stick that to him for me for that. And you have the Mage, you have the Thief, you have the Brawler, you have the Warrior, you have the Knight, which was, of course, Hulkenberg. Brawler, Warrior was Stroll. You have the Healer, which deviated, I believe, from Gallica in a sense, and her opening eye ability, from what I remember. You have Commander, you have Gunner, you have Merchant, you have Faker, and then there are other types of archetypes that can be evolved from the Sim system in this game, and that's what they call the Follower system, and improving those bonds, as they put it, the bonds, and strengthening them opens up new archetypes for you, which is like the Masked Dancer, the Summoner, or the Berserker. Now that one I'm interested in seeing. So all in all, it's so many multiple lineages from that evolution of that. You can get up to 40 types of archetypes, 40 different archetype types, if that makes sense. I'm saying it's so crazy. You get 40 different archetypes in all, from evolutions to different types that you get to use. That to me says it's going to be a lot of creativity that can be had from this, a lot of freedom creatively on how you decide to approach it, which I like. I'm really interested in seeing how this plays out, and I know it's going to be some type of meta, how people use these things, and I'm really interested in learning and seeing how to implement this. What is you guys' thoughts on that part when it comes to that? And what would you think you'll probably lean more toward as far as the archetype system? If you need me to name them all to you again, for like which one does what, I can do that for you. But what would be your thoughts on the whole archetype system, knowing that it's 40 different archetypes in total, including the evolutions of them?
Yeah, I would say that I'm already planning on being pretty heavy on the mage side of it. I expect myself to dabble in all of them, because you kind of have to. You won't be able to stick to one. You will have to interact with all of them to be able to take advantage of enemies' weaknesses. You're gonna have to switch around. So that much, totally understandable. But typically, I find myself probably going to stick to the mage primarily as like my main damage dealer, except when it doesn't have the proper attacks to take advantage to weaknesses, then I'll switch to something else. But one thing that I wanted to say is, once you each stage of, I have to level up my person to their next stage of something, that's going to require, one, you getting that archetype to a certain level. So the first time that you have a chance to upgrade them is level 20. And then you also need to have your social links at a certain point to take advantage of that and then upgrade it. So you're gonna need two systems to be able to take advantage of that. But let's say you get to level 20 on on a on an archetype, and you're just running around, farming. That archetype, despite being quote unquote max level for the stage that it's at, it will still gain experience. And then when it would have gone up the next level, it gives you an item that corresponds with the amount of experience that that level would represent. So near the end, when I was just trying to get money and mag as a way to be able to convert into money, like near the end, when I was just kind of min-maxing my run, at the end there, I was just knocking enemies away, collecting the mag, X, Y, and Z, not really dealing with anything. And I was getting a bunch of those items that will allow me to upgrade my other people to higher levels. So for like, I tested it out, like I saved and then saw how much I could do. I could bring my Seeker to level 20. Like I already have my mage to level 20, but I can bring my Seeker to level 20,
Right.
and I can bring a couple of my other ones to like level 10 without having to use them inside of combat and everything. And I get all the benefits for that. So you get the attacks, you get all the sub benefits as well. It's going to be really fun.
Yeah, definitely. What's your thoughts on it, Assassin? Are you excited for the option of 40 different archetypes in this, and how do you think you might use it? I'm sorry, I was muted. I was going to say Assassin, but well said, by the way, Lucius. To you, are you excited about the 40 different options and archetypes, and how do you think you might plan to use it out when it comes to that?
Sorry, sore throat. I mean, I'm excited and surprised that there's actually 40 different archetypes, if I'm being honest. But for me, usually when I play JRPGs, I like to stick with the quote-unquote spell sword archetype. Someone good with the blade, also good with magic. I'm not entirely sure if there is an archetype for that, but if there is, that's the one I'm going for. If not, I think it's best that I continue to upgrade the Seeker archetype. 'Cause that one, I always have a soft spot for the first quote-unquote persona, or in this case archetype, that I unlock. So for me, I think it's just going to be the Seeker until I find an archetype that fits the spell sword.
That's kind of how I see it too. And a Seeker is more of a well-rounded archetype, so I think it has a bit of the sword attacks, but it definitely has magic casting too. Yeah, definitely. Now, we didn't even touch on this, and I'll go to this, and then we'll move to the sim thing really quick, and then get the final thoughts. But the synthesis ability that the archetype system also allows is really cool. So, for instance, and it has to be for those that are more compatible. So, for instance, the warrior and knight they can go into a synthesis that the game allows, that they do this combined magical attack in the game, and it looks really cool. It's animated where like he jumps in the sky, or the Seeker actually does it too. The Seeker does it with the knight too, if I'm not mistaken, where you jump into the sword and you fly around and come down and slash them. It looks really cool. It just looks really dope. What were you guys' thoughts on the whole the synthesis idea when it comes to that, Lucius?
Yeah, I think it adds a good amount of risk and reward to that synthesis system. It's just another level of additional complexity that they add to the game that I really do love.
Yeah, 100%. And what about you, Assassin? You like the whole synthesis idea and how they animated it and everything like that?
Yeah, well, yeah, I really do.
Yeah, I wonder how far that goes. Like, again, with 40 different archetypes and such like that, how deep does that go, that system of things? And I'm also wondering if, since we're relatively short on the demo here, what different abilities and stuff, things we might not have seen in the demo that will be added for the full release. So I'm really hyped for that. One little moving to the sim section of the discussion. The aspect I like about the sim system that the archetypes play into is that meeting with the followers that you get to meet here in the world, which is part of the simulation aspect of, the social simulation aspect, is that talking with them will evolve your abilities as an archetype. So to me, I thought it was one of the more standout features in it, and because it plays to both the narrative and actual combat and things like that here. So narratively, making these bonds and increasing your social status plays into the political part of the story, to where things, I'm skipping ahead here, but in the story there becomes a part where somebody has to run to be the new official king of, to hold the throne, essentially. So you're going to have the Louis Guillaume there, who's essentially winning by the time, or essentially even with one of the mainstays from the Sanctism Church, the Church of Sanctism. And now we have to fight essentially for a spot in this as the main protagonist. And the reason for doing it, of course, is to find a cure for the prince who Louis Guillaume also cursed. Essentially, we have to take Louis Guillaume out. So all of that plays into that as well. And this follower system here with the social aspect of this is really, really unique to me. And I'm not sure how it played out into other games of Persona, but I'm sure that plays into those as well. Assassin, maybe you can elaborate on that, the whole social aspect of Persona and how it might influence this game. What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, the social link system has always been unique to Persona. So each of the main characters and even some of the side characters in Persona, the more that you build a relationship with them, and it maxes out at rank 10, the more powerful your personas to that specific arcana that the character represents will get stronger. Like, for example, there's a character in Persona 4, Yosuke, he represents the Magician arcana. As you get to know more about him and his character and what his motivations are, not only will he be able to unlock new abilities for his persona, but any persona under the Magician arcana will also get more powerful. When you combine personas, if the higher the Magician rank is, and you're trying to create a Magician arcana persona, it will give you an extra mental boost to what abilities you can use and how effective you are in combat. Here in Metaphor, it seems like if you unlock a character and they give you an archetype, you don't have to worry about leveling up them, per se. It's still obviously good to level them up, because just because if you unlock an archetype for yourself, that doesn't mean it's gonna raise it for them as well. You obviously have to build a relationship with them too, and that'll get them more powerful, and that'll get you more powerful with the specific archetype that they represent. That has always been a staple that I've liked since playing Persona 3 Reload. It absolutely encourages you to get to know the characters and get to know them as actual people, not just as fictional characters that you can easily just forget if you wanted to. But with Atlus's characters, believe me, I remember all the names of the social links from Persona 3 because those characters were well written, and it's obviously Metaphor is well written with its characters too. So 40 archetypes, 40 quote-unquote social links with people you have to get to know.
So true. And I've seen a few. I saw that you actually do meet her in the city square if you're paying attention. She had pink hair and she had those like rabbit ears. I forgot what type of tribe they is. I think it starts with a C. That tribe.
Gria's his daughter. If you meet her at the Honeybee Inn,
that's right.
Yep. She activates one of the archetypes as well. I think it was.
She does. Maria.
The Saint archetype.
Hers was.
I know it was church related.
Was a healer?
The healer.
Yeah,
okay.
It was healer for her. Yep.
Yeah, the healer archetype, which has healing magic and light magic, which ironically needs right now in Persona 3.
Yeah, I when that part came up at first, I was like, "What's this little girl? I hope I'm not taking this little girl into battle with me." But I was like, "No, it's just the archetype."
No.
Yeah.
Well, okay, in P3 you take a little boy and you take a dog into combat,
Oh
so
wow. Okay.
You do,
don't
yeah,
put it
you do
past
take a dog
Atlas.
into combat. Yeah, yeah.
Got
So
that
who knows?
dog with him. Yeah. So, but
Hey,
yeah,
hey man, that dog does damage.
sick 'em Fido. But yeah, I love that. I will agree with you on that. That to me, that adds to the whole narrative strength of the game because you get to meet these other characters that build into this world, and it really pulls you into it. From what I can tell already, just from what I've seen, even with, by the way, our brother Grius's wife there. I'm like, all right, look at this mama here. I see you, animal mama. She was looking all right. You know what I'm saying? I ain't trying to be funny, assassin, but she was looking all right. You feel me?
This guy over here.
But I love
No,
it,
but
man.
there's some good looking characters,
Mhm.
and it seems like a lot of them are going to give you access to these archetypes. Like there's that black lady, obviously not
Mhm.
black in the way that me and you know her, but
Right.
like the
Melanated. Very melanated
yeah,
queen. Yes.
there's the melanated woman who owns that like jewelry shop that those are like kind of the magic infused items that they use to be able to do spells and such. um she has a very specific mission that you can do, but it's kind of difficult to be able to try to do it all inside of
The time we have. Yeah.
inside of the time that we have. But you
Mhm.
can do it. You just need to dedicate pretty much all that time to it.
Yep.
As soon as they're like, okay, you have like 3 days or whatever. All right, first day, talk to some guy who needs some medicine, get some medicine for him. Boom.
Mhm.
Then go to where she's located, talk to her. She's gonna be like, no, you can't take this mission because you're stupid. And you're like, cool. Talk to like somebody who's near her who's asking you to go make some food at the inn that you're located. Cool. In the same location there's a bench spot. You sit at that bench spot and you look at the horizon. That gains you a few points of wisdom. At night you go cook the food that you need to cook. The next day you return back to him and you're like, yo, I cooked the food for you. And he's like, bet, tell me everything about it. You gain a bunch of wisdom from the fact that you are able to gain knowledge and then speak to somebody who also had knowledge about something. And that gives you enough wisdom to go back to that lady and be like, yo, I'm not a stupid fuck anymore. Can you please give me this mission? And she's like, all right, it's gonna be hard though. And she gives you this mission, and
Yeah.
then you just, if you're able to like go through the dungeon and complete it and beat the enemy at the very end, she gives you the merchant archetype, which literally I don't even know if I should get it this early, because its main skill, its main thing that it uses is not HP. It doesn't use MP. It uses money.
Yes. Yes.
So you use money as a way to be able to do its attacks.
There you
So I'm definitely not gonna be able to level that guy up.
go. I'm gonna buy my way into beating your ass. That's what I'm gonna do. Game. But anyway, no, I like that, man. I like all of those aspects of that too. And also too, to touch into what you just said, is the calendar system in the game, the part of the social thing. And like you said, you have a deadline essentially to do some of these tasks. So it's a little different. It puts a little urgency on getting some of these side missions done, because I believe you can miss out on them. They are missable.
Yes, there's going to be a lot of stuff that's missable. So it's like you have to interact with a bunch of different places, see what your options are, and then based off of that, be like, all right, today I'm only going to have so much time to be able to do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I have to strategically figure out, because a lot of times in Persona games, it'll be like, oh, this big bad is gonna burn the White House in 10 days. So you have to prepare to make sure that you stop that happening within that 10-day period. And you're like, okay, so I could just immediately run off and go do that, or I can do 5 days worth of bullshit and then save the last 3 days to like, okay, try to do it the first day. If I can't do it all in the first day, then I go back and then I go in at the near the end of the dungeon, because you can
Right.
teleport near the end of the dungeon, and then you finish that last portion of the dungeon when you have plenty of days left or something like that.
Yeah.
So like that's pretty much how you're gonna have to play that game. Never try to rush directly into the main dungeon. Try to do a couple things here and there, maximize your time the best that you can. uh, that might also entail going to a different location, fighting in a different dungeon, gaining everything that you can there, so that way when you come back, you have a few days left to still finish the main story thing. But now you're at a much higher level. You have all like much better items than you would have if you would have just initially walked in there. And because the system allows you to just smack enemies around that are weaker than you,
Right.
the earlier section of the dungeon that would have been harder for you to do, you're just smacking motherfuckers around now because you're much stronger because you did a different dungeon before the main one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I like all of these thoughts here for sure. Assassin, do you have anything else to add on the sim aspect of things?
Not really. Just repeating what you guys were talking about, the calendar system.
Yeah.
Like Lucia said, don't worry about doing the main dungeon or the main mission right away. Just do what you can to make sure that you're prepared for the fight. Level up yourself, party. Make sure that if you're gonna focus on a certain archetype for the boss fight, focus on that. Don't worry about everything else. Just be prepared for the fight. Because I talked with Red about P5.
Mm-hmm.
If you do not prepare, you're going to get fucked. And I'm assuming that Metaphor will be the same way.
Yeah. Yeah, I
And
really
you got to remember, Persona are the easier games. Those are technically considered easier amongst the Atlas fans that play SMT and Persona. Persona is definitely the easier one. So like the fact that Metaphor is gonna be harder than this, and I don't know if you ever had a situation where an enemy attacked you before you got to attack them in Metaphor. Oh, that is the worst situation, because even if it's the weakest piece of shit on the planet, apparently they can almost kill everyone.
Yeah. It
So,
happened
like,
to me once actually. Yep.
You always want to get the jump on your enemies, and if you don't, it's not a good time.
It's not a good time at all. I do like that they give different animations for it though, by the way. So if you attack first and start up the system, the battle system, you see the main character eyes light up with the power, and he's like, yeah. But if you get hit second, you'll be like, he'll reel back, and then he refocuses and the energy will focus through his eyes again, but he'll be like, oh God, I'm caught up. And it'll say something like peril. And now you have to get yourself ready, because essentially they're going to get a few hits off on you that you're not going to appreciate. But yeah, I love a lot of this. Just to throw it out there because it was Ash. Shout out to everybody that's still here, by the way. If you all have not done so, please hit the like button, as my brother Dirt would say. Refantazio is releasing October 11th. And it's dropping on PlayStation 4, PS5, Windows, and Xbox Series X and S. Microsoft does have the marketing rights for it as well, as they've had for previous Atlas games as well, by the way. Just final thoughts, fellas. Nothing too crazy. Just your final thoughts on where you think this game will land in the zeitgeist of Game of the Year discussions and things like that. Do you think it won't be well received sales wise? Whatever you want to elaborate on and give thoughts to, you can go first, Assassin.
Well, sales wise, I have no doubt that it's going to sell big. This is actually the first big new Atlas game that isn't launching on Game Pass, so Xbox fans, if you want to play it, you'll have to chalk up to $70, just like people on Steam and PlayStation do. Not to say that that's a bad thing. Metaphor, based on the demo alone, is very high quality. You're going to get your $70 worth. As far as the community's reaction to it in Game of the Year, I honestly see no objection to that. Atlas has been nominated for Game of the Year before. Persona 5, back in 2017, was nominated for Game of the Year. I could honestly see Metaphor showing up in the Game of the Year conversation, alongside games like Astro Bot and Black Myth Wukong. As far as the score, I don't typically like to score games, especially when they're not out. I don't typically like to follow the 1 to 10 type of scoring because I think that's subjective. You know
Yeah.
how everybody says, "Oh, if it's 7 or below, it's trash." That's not the
I blame
case.
my Hoove
In my
brothers again
opinion,
for that that mentality.
yeah, in my opinion, 5 is average. 5 to 10 can be good or even great. That's just me. As far as if I had to give it a score, a numbered score, I hope this doesn't bite me in the ass. In my heart, I want it to be 95
Mm.
because I want it to do better than Final Fantasy. And I say this as
Yeah.
a Final Fantasy fan.
Yeah.
Like, I want Atlas to get a win over Square, not because of anything petty, but just because that'd be so hilarious. In my head, though, I think it's going to be 90-91. I think it's going to break the 90 barrier.
Okay. Yeah. And listen, you're not necessarily giving a score. You're just kind of giving an opinion of where you think it might land critically.
Yeah, it's gonna be Game of the Year contender. It's gonna be probably akin to Atlas's Elden Ring moment.
Yeah, I do see that. To me, it feels like it's going to be the Elden Ring of their games. I know Persona 5 is seen like that too from what we discussed that time, but I feel like this might be their Elden Ring moment right here. We'll see. But what about you, Lucius? What's your thoughts and what do you think this might land?
Yeah, I think that this is going to end up being probably mid. In my heart of hearts, I think it's going to like actually break the 90s barrier, but I also know that there's a chance that some people may not be into this sort of game, and uh, as much as I loved and a lot of other people loved Persona 5, that doesn't necessarily mean we'll get the same sort of reaction. And I understand that. So it's not like, but I do really want it to also beat the 90s barrier. I think it would be fantastic if it could do that. But if it hit mid 80s, I also wouldn't be mad.
Okay.
How many copies do you think it'll sell? I asked that before, but I don't think we've really.
I think it easily goes to like 2 million. I think
In the first week?
Yeah, I think it could easily hit 2 million in the first week, because Persona 3 Reload hit 1 million in the first week, and that was that was kind of like a remaster that some people may not have been as big of a fan to just put money into that initially.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it could hit somewhere between 1.5 to 2 million in the first week, and I think that would be a significant indication of very good things to come if it's able to do that.
Yeah, for me, just to say, and I touched on it before earlier, but I feel like this could be one of those Game of the Year contenders. I think it's going to have a lot of love from the press. Personally, we're already kind of seeing it with Famitsu, who gave their shared review. I believe 4 different reviewers do theirs, and I think the overall consensus was 9 out of 10 for them. Just to throw it out there, me and Lucius are planning on doing a Famitsu style review of Metaphor Refantazio, especially if we can get call off Sega. If we can get some keys for this, we would love to get started on it as soon as possible.
Yeah, and it's not because we don't want to pay for the game.
Right.
Both of us have already pre-ordered the game. That is not the problem.
Right.
The game
I
is
pre-ordered the game.
The game is 100 plus hours. If we can get started on the review as soon as possible, that would be fantastic.
Mm-hmm. It would be fantastic. Fantazio. How about that? I'm sorry. I couldn't help it.
Umbra, if you really wanted to make it a Famitsu, you need 2 more people, and I know myself
Yeah.
and another certain person who would like to jump in.
Hey,
So, yeah.
listen, I'm not
we
opposed
do want
to
to get
it.
we do want to get all 4 people, but it is a 100-hour RPG, so we don't know if we want to force
Yeah.
people to beat it. Like at least me and Umbra, we've both said that we're going to beat it before giving it a score, but I don't know if we can ask other people to do that within the same timeline that we're going to do it.
Yeah, that's the tougher part about it. Like, we'd all have to essentially be playing it at the same time and kind of work our way through it enough. We could obviously set a standard, like, hey, that you get through the main story, right? We could do that,
Hmm.
but I'm not opposed to that, man. I mean, we can also later on add you guys' consensus into the review that we can have. For instance, Kay on the blog add to the review process and show what you all consensus wise came to as well. We can do that, so it can be a case where you all play it later and give your a written kind of smaller synopsis, consensus, whatever, and you can have that added later. So how about that? We can brainstorm that a little bit later and see how we can work that out. But yeah, I believe somebody just subscribed. Thank you guys. For those who have not done so yet, if you're in chat or if you're lurking or whatever the case may be, we appreciate you being here with us. I know this was a long talk. Went a little bit longer than I wanted, but it's still, hey, we got all of the talk out. I think this was worth that, and I enjoyed it. I thank you guys for being here with us. So if you all have not done so as far as audience, please hit the like button and subscribe if you have not done so. Thank you to whoever just subscribed, by the way. Let's get out of here, guys. Let's do this outro here. As far as starting the outro, let's start with you, Lucius, since we started with my brother Assassin. Lucius, thank you for being here, brother, giving this platform your thoughts and your wisdom and takes on things like that. Tell the good folks where they can not find you.
Yeah, don't look for
Don't look for them.
don't look for me. I do not appreciate being perceived.
There you go.
But the few places that you will be able to interact with me is going to be on the Gaming Circle Discord. So if you are there, sometimes we're just inside of voice chat, chopping it up, talking about all sorts of things. And I just want to let you know it gets spicy in there. So don't think that that you can just walk in there and just like things might get a little spicy. Just know that it's not any hate towards you, and then we're not trying to be disrespectful or anything. But we sometimes have some pretty serious discussions, right? And sometimes that can irk people the wrong way. But just understand that we're always trying to have some of the harder discussions inside of that Discord. So join that if that's what you want to be a part of.
Yeah, we actually have some really great conversations in there. I think, honestly, Lucius, I think that could be turned into an actual content thing for GCP. Like, we can.
I mean, I don't know about that. It kind of gets wild.
A little too spicy, you think?
I don't know if we want to publish that.
I don't know, man. I mean, think about it as an uncut variety that could be part of like a Patreon or something.
You don't want too many ingredients and chefs in the kitchen, Umbra.
Yeah. I'm telling you, though, those conversations are golden. They are. It is a little too spicy at times. I will agree. It might not be ready for prime time. Some people might not. They'll probably try to cancel us. I will agree. But it's good discussions, and I say cancel not in the sense that we're saying crazy, anti whatever stuff, but we're saying stuff that people in the industry might not appreciate at times. But yeah, definitely check out the GCP Discord. I don't have the link yet to post that. Lucius, I don't know if you want to share that in the chat. You can if you want. I can add it in post for the GCP Discord. My Discord, by the way, is in the description as well as both these gentlemen's information. Lucius is quite hilarious if you all look at the description for his or where you can find him. And anyway, moving on to my brother Assassin Entertainment. One half, or not half, because that's you have to be more than one person. Anyway, one panelist of the Red Wolf Renegades, my brother Assassin Ben. Thank you for being here, brother. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I love your takes for such a young man. And I hate to sound old when I say that, but for such a young man, you have a ton of wisdom. You have a ton of knowledge and on gaming and in general in life that I really appreciate, and I hope that to see you continue to grow when it comes to that. And yeah, man, thank you for being here. Tell the good folks where they can find you and what you'll be up to.
You can find me on Twitter. I refuse to call it X at Assassin52. If if you like my takes, you'll definitely like mine on Twitter. I don't know why I just said X. I just said I didn't like it. Anyway, you can find me on Twitter at Assassin52.
You're being corrupted.
It has. I'm being corrupted by Musk himself.
Right.
Yeah, there I have a lot of juicy, spicy takes about Xbox, PlayStation, just gaming in general. Umbra mentioned it just a second ago. I am a member of the Renegade Realm podcast, hosted by Red Wolf Renegade. We have Holly, that blue number, is also a panelist. We also have DeMarco Dude, who is a big Bethesda fanboy and content creator on YouTube. Every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Central Time? Yep, 5 p.m. Central Time on Red Wolf's channel. The link is actually in Umbra's description down below. Every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Central, holy mother of God, do we have some crazy shenanigans on that podcast. We will go off the rails and we will just as fast come right back to the topic.
Yeah.
Everyone there is a gamer. We love all the platform holders. Well, okay. I love all the platform holders.
Yeah, you have to elaborate on that one.
Yeah, I had to elaborate on that.
Yeah.
Although we're not biased. We talk about all the publishers. We talk about all the studios fairly, without bias. So yeah, that's a lot of fun over there. And you can also find me at Assassin52 on Twitch. I'm actually streaming a horror game every night for the month of October. I will finish the Resident Evil 2 remake tonight, actually, in about an hour.
Nice.
I'm gonna go ahead and finish that. Got Dead Space in the pipeline. Silent Hill 2 remake. I'll be streaming that on Monday. And I'll finally be trying Alan Wake 2 this month. So hit me up there. We can actually enjoy this spooky month together.
Spooktacular. So, and by the way, be sure to share your link for that in the promote your channel part on my Discord, man. And every time you go live or whatever, share it in there, so people can get to come and check you out. Maybe get a view or two. You never know. Maybe even more. Yeah. So, man, thank you guys again for being here, holding us down. Like I said, it's been a longer discussion than I intended. That's kind of how it goes here in the Fix. I'm like, oh, we'll be here for a short 1 hour. 3 hours later, it almost always works out that way. But you guys are great conversationalists, so I guess I probably should have planned for that. But I'm not mad either way because I felt all the conversation needed to be that. Shout out to my mod, Gray Monad, by the way. Thank you, brother, for being here, holding me down as you always do. Man, as far as things go, this has been our Refantazio Roundtable. I hope that you all, if you have had little knowledge of it or interest, that this opened up your eyes to this possibility of being a game worth your time. And yeah, man, let's enjoy gaming, whatever you decide to play. Let's hope you enjoy it. As far as myself, you can find me on Twitter, Infinite Umbra or Umbra Infinite. You will find me either way. On Tuesdays, the Xbox Factor podcast with Boom and Jamie Moran, that is at 12 o'clock Eastern. On Thursdays, typically, The Fix with myself and Daniel J. McGee is my co-star, co-host, and sometimes guest. Sometimes us just doing the old YOLO solo dolo thing. And Fridays, typically the Xbox. Oh, excuse me. Now it's just the Infinite podcast, hosted by Risk It for the Biscuit. Also with that blue number as panelists, myself and Dante Moody, aka Spriggan, and Garuda Intruder. So come by for those and subscribe to the channel. If you all have not, hope to see you guys here next time and continue to rock with us. We're going to get out of here. You guys have a great weekend. Play you some Metaphor Refantazio. Play you some Starfield Shattered Space. Play you some Astro Bot. Just play something and enjoy your nights and days. See you guys later. You all have a good one.